What's up, everybody? John Maddox here, coming at you with another late night logical, plausible, probable. We're gonna be having an open mic discussion. You never know where we might end up, but I will tell you this: before we're done, we will have put some Evos in their place, because when I'm finished, you done.
What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. And for those of you that are joining this late night stream coming over from Modern Day Debate, I appreciate you coming. For everybody else, welcome. Hope you'll have a good time. If you just witnessed the debate I was involved in, you may understand why I've still got a little bit of adrenaline going in my system, because I was just blown away at the ridiculousness of the individual I just faced. The dude was wearing a onesie. A grown man was wearing a onesie for a debate in relation to our very existence. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what just went down over on MDD. A dude wearing a onesie who doesn't know anything about the topic of intelligent design, biology, the questions about existence. I can only imagine the dumpster fire that would have been if we got into philosophy. I mean, good night. Anyway, I'm going to attempt to not just turn into a complete evisceration of the dude when he's not here. Those of you who want to join the after show, your opinions about the debate or just things going on in general. I haven't had a stream in a while. I got a lot of things going on. But the link is pinned in the side channel. I'll post again here in just a second. If anybody wants to join, have a discussion, love to hear y'all's opinions about what you just witnessed. Who won, lost, best one-liners. If, perhaps I am just misinterpreting what happened in that debate, and maybe my ego is just reaching such a level that I think that I'm always winning. But that one, to be honest, was on par with my debate with Godless Engineer in terms of sheer and utter ignorance combined with stupidity. I mean, I still haven't gotten over this. The genetic code is not a digital code. It's not really one. So we make it one, but it's not really one. I mean, I don't even know where to start on some of these things. When I listen to these people spew these talking points that showcase their utter ignorance and then try to use, there's this thing called the Library of Babel that can get a sequence. Everything possible can just pop up there. Dude, you actually think that if the Library of Babel solved all the questions about the existence of life in the universe, you think maybe the dude who came up with the Library of Babel he might be a known entity, like probably would have been given some awards, maybe a few prizes, maybe a couple $1 million in Nobel prizes, maybe, I don't know, for coming up with this and solving this problem. It's like, dude, you don't even understand. You don't even admit. I don't even, folks. That was crazy. I mean, when even folks like Dawkins recognize it's a digital code, and then you're going to sit here and tell me that it's not a digital code. I don't even know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I was trying to find the clip on my computer, but I've got it saved in my StreamYard account. And this
in biology, I suppose it would have to be the double helix, Watson and Crick discovery of the structure of DNA, which was far more than just the discovery, the crystallographic work, discovering the structure of a big molecule. Because what that led up to was a major revolution in which much of biology became a sort of branch of information technology. The consequence of the Watson-Crick discovery, with all that it led on to, the DNA code, and the sort of various genome projects that are going on now, is that genes, which from my point of view are absolutely central to biology, genes are information. They are coded information. It even looks like computer information. I mean, a chromosome is a great long computer tape. It's linear, it runs one-dimensional, digital code. It's not binary, it's quaternary, but apart from that, it's just the same as computer tape. It's read in sequence. It's copied and pasted from one part of the organism to another in just the same way as a computer programmer would copy and paste. So biology has turned into computer science, and the sort of mystification of biology, which was still possible when people could talk about a life force, a vital fluid, things like that, essentially skyhook explanations, that's completely out. You can never hear anybody talking nonsense like that anymore. And it's all, I won't say it's all due to Watson and Crick, but it was Watson and Crick that really finally torpedoed that kind of thinking in biology.
But it is not a code, it's a chemical. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. It's an acid. I don't understand why you think it's a code. DNA is no more of a code than Diet Coke and regular Coke.
So I haven't gotten over one of the things that guy said when I asked him, like, so if it's made out of chemicals, it's not really code then? Well, no, I was talking about robots. It's not really a robot if it's made out of chemicals. Well, no, it's made out of chemicals. That's just biology. Like, dude, everything at some level has chemicals, bro. Like, you don't think there's chemicals in your car? It's just chemicals, man. It's like the level of ignorance. Like, what really blows me away every time when I have these debates. I'm like, what? There is no other context in which people who don't have a freaking clue what they are talking about would come on in front of a crowd. In this context, YouTube, whether it be digital, video, in person, whatever. In no other context would people come out and just be like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm going to come up here and have a debate on something I'm an ignorant fool on. And then I'm going to make some of the dumbest claims. I mean, there was a point where I was like, dude, please, I forget what it was. I'm like, please don't say yes to the question out, like the hypothetical I was asking. Because it's so well known that the antithesis of the answer and the talking points of the Evo atheists on YouTube is reality. I mean, the fact that he was going down the Miller-Urey route, like, dude, we found out how to make amino acids, therefore we've solved how proteins exist. No. Miller-Urey, like, created functional polypeptide. Bro, come on. Oh, please don't do it. Just stop. Just stop, man. Like, you're wearing a onesie, bro. You're wearing a onesie. I can't take it. Oh man. What's up, Billy? Come on, Bill. Come on in, man. Posting the link. Everyone wants to join and come in and share their thoughts about this. Come on in. Link is pinned. Just paste it in side chat again. Say what's up to everybody. Cheryl, thank you for joining us. You were the first person to join the stream. Appreciate you. I know nobody knew it was going on, so thank you for coming in. And yes, his onesie had ears. It really happened. Let's go say what's up, Andrew. Samuel. Oh, Samuel, what's up, man? How you doing? Godzilla Freak, what's up, man? How are you? Welcome to the after show. CJ, how are you? Mitchell, thanks so much for coming to this impromptu late night. Sam, Redefine Living, as always, thank you. And by the way, Sam's was giving me some tips on doing some wiring and what kind of breaker I needed to get for my little project, and having three-way and like on off, redirect the power, all this kind of stuff. It was amazing. Mitchell's a great chat. He says, how could he sit there in his intelligently designed onesie and keep a straight face? Is beyond me. Yeah, it really is getting it's I really don't know how these people take themselves seriously anymore. It's really getting we're surpassing any and all rationality, taking yourself seriously, being coherent, and actually utilizing critical thinking skills prior to putting forth some of these statements. I mean, it's getting bad. I love that. Fan of Godless Engineer. What's up, Bill? How are you?
Hey, oh, let me turn off my YouTube.
So, did you witness any of the debacle that happened over in MDD, or you just joined us for the stream?
Just got home from witnessing, so I just.
Well, nice. I'll appreciate you.
I gotta.
Appreciate you coming in. Yeah, man. It's. Well, you know what? How was the witnessing? Why don't you tell us what was going on? That's more important than my rant about the lunacy of the last 2 hours of my life.
Well, let me. Gosh, how do I stop the two sounds? What do I do? Turn off the YouTube or? Oh wait, here it is. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, just mute YouTube.
Got it. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, every time you go witnessing, it's like being a policeman. It's always different. Tonight was amazing. I met an elderly Arabic woman, not that elderly, with her kid, and her kid had the IQ of 1,000,000. And my goal is to get people to pray to be forgiven, have Jesus as Lord. And they prayed. And then I met two depressed teenage boys. We talked for about 45 minutes, and they eagerly prayed to have Jesus as Lord, be forgiven.
Awesome.
And the most important thing now for people is to be thankful. And if you don't know God, who would you be thankful to, John? Would you be thankful?
I don't know. Probably not. Or maybe in passing, but not necessarily from a substantive, fundamental manner. It'd be a very fleeting aspect of thankfulness, for sure.
I always like to ask people, how do you deal with the pain? It's a great witnessing question.
No, that's a great point. I think about that. You've heard me talk about that exact concept before. I mean, it's, to me, when you really contemplate your existence and all the things that you go through, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, joyous, painful, any of those things, like, if you don't have grounding, the perspective of all of them becomes very fragile and lacking in substance overall, and things become either dramatically exacerbated or magnificently reduced in significance. And that's just my opinion anyway. I think I've observed that. I personally observed that. And when I think back to some of the stuff that I've gone through from a both positive and a negative perspective, I mean, I think about when my life basically crumbled and I was being faced with contemplation of my very existence, from my mortality, not just material and everything else. I mean, that was a factor as well. Like, my actual existence had to be called into question. And to me, I think a lot of folks, I mean, at some point as we get older, pretty much everybody at some point faces their own mortality, right?
Everybody thinks about it.
And at some point you have to contemplate it. But on one side, people try to just like dismiss it. Or, you know, when let's get real. Bill, you and I both know we were young men, like those boys that you were talking to. They probably haven't truly questioned their mortality yet. They still have that youthful innocence and the youthful immortality that at some point gets stripped away from you, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit different perspective for them. But anyway, continue. I've been rambling there for a minute.
That's okay. One of my debate opponents, I won't name who, I asked him, what would you say to a very depressed teenager who was kicked out of his house? He's living on his friend's couch and he just sees no purpose in life and he's miserable. What would you tell him? And my opponent replied, I would tell him it gets better. And my response was, you're lying to the guy. He could get cancer. He could get hit by the car that just went whizzing down that street. There's no promise. The atheist has no answer to grief and misery. And what I believe the solution to grief and misery is to stop thinking of your problems and to be thankful for your eyes, for your ears, for your hands, for food, for the sunset, for your ribs. But the atheist has no one to be thankful to, and they numb their pain with drugs, alcohol, sex, or just denial. And that's a very strong argument for getting tight with God, someone to be thankful to.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And I think in line with what you just stated there, and I think it was on full display. You missed it, the debate I had, but the level of ignorance was staggering, and denial of the obvious, the concessions, but then the refusal to like extrapolate out the meaning, right? I mean,
who is AST? First of all, I'm sorry, I missed.
Okay, so AST literally stands for actual socialist trash. That's what he calls himself.
Okay, he wants attention. Go ahead.
Wants attention. Probably has very low self-esteem, we might guess. Trying to compensate for it with faux confidence and such. This guy literally said he didn't know if he found something that had his name on it and had the schematics for a 3D printed robot. He didn't know if he could determine that was the result of an intelligent agent, and he would probably take the position that he just didn't know. Like, it has your name on it. Like, you're going to say no. Anyway, my point is that, or I'm going with all this, is the point you were making. I think people very, like, either willfully or just ignorant of or willfully refuse to contemplate the barely contained chaos that is our existence. And don't even attempt to contemplate, how am I here? Right? Like, how, like, we get consumed with the little stuff, right? And get distracted and everything. And don't really think about, like, okay, you made the point of, oh, is it going to get better? Well, you could be walking down the street and get run over by a car. Right? And it's like, well, that's random chaos. Right? If you're walking down the street, get run over by the car, like why? Well, I mean, somebody had a heart attack, or they swerved, or their axle broke, and they, came over and ran you over. They ran a red light. You were on your cell phone texting, and you walked into the middle of the street and got run over. I mean, there's so many different, possibilities that could result in that.
Well, I don't know anything about AST, but I like to gamble. Not big money, but I would gamble my entire house and my car versus your house and your car, John, that AST has more faith that God exists than 80% of the people who go to your church, but he's enraged at God. Would you agree with that?
That's definitely a possibility. I can see that.
The hardcore atheists definitely believe in God. They're just angry at him.
Right. So it's a staunch projection of the rejection.
Otherwise, why would you waste your time fighting it?
That's true.
They have passion, they have faith, but they have a broken heart, and I have compassion for them.
No, that's a very good point. I would agree with you on a significant percentage of them are definitely in. Well, I mean, especially when you hear the talking points of, even if I had face-to-face interaction with God and X miracles performed in front of me, even if I did believe, I would reject. It's like,
because they're mad.
Okay. Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because in my debate tonight, so the title was, "Is there evidence for ID?" Okay. Immediately he went, you can probably predict where this immediately went to, but it was, who's the designer then? What's his model? Who's the designer? What's his name? Who was it? It's like, so that's not the point of the debate. We're asking whether you're trying to argue, you want to debate religion and like which specific named entity versus whether or not there's evidence for or against. Like, that was the entire point of the debate. And you're trying to completely dismiss whether or not something can be utilized as evidence for or against, unless I can show you who did it. That's like stating that if you're doing forensics, you can't determine what happened, even if you can't determine who did it. You can just still figure out like what had to have been accounted for. And
well,
to me, that's like such basic common sense. It's like, that is not complicated thought. to comprehend and to be. You can, if you're stating that you can't apply those principles, well, then you need to go and like shut down whole swaths of universities around the world, because that's the exact logic they follow. And if you're going to state that you can't, that doesn't work, then go tell them to stop doing what they're doing. I mean, it's anyway.
Well, suppose we did a road trip to South Dakota and we had a hidden camera, and you go up to people and say, "What's that up there?" Well, somebody made Mount Rushmore. Who was it? What was the guy's name? How did he do it? How long did it take him to do it? Why did he do it? It's the same thing. Well, I don't know the name of the guy who built it. I don't know how he did it, but it's definitely been built. Who was his father? But here's my thing. AST, I never met the guy. He's got a broken heart. He releases endorphins by hating God. He has pain. I believe when people curse God, it releases a little painkiller, an endorphin. And that is how he is dealing with his hurt. And so all you can do is plant seeds, John. Banging your head against the wall won't do any good. He knows your arguments. Would you agree? He just wants to stay in his denial to release the endorphins of rage.
Well, I don't know how much he knows all of my arguments, but yes, I would agree with the point you're making. Yes, let's just say this guy was exceptionally ignorant, but I would agree with your the top level logic you're applying. I agree 100%. It's it's sad. What's up, Andrew? Rational Empiricist, how you doing, man?
Good. Yourself?
Hanging in there. I assume you're watching the debate, or are you just joining the after show?
Oh, you mean I watched the debate?
No, I asked if you watched the debate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did watch it.
Okay, so you know the whole purpose of after shows. Like, you've been on multiple. Do I have to like outline it for you again?
No, I did watch it. I didn't know where you were going with that.
Here, I'll ask him, Rational, what was your favorite part of the debate?
Let me think. I'm not sure, to be honest. There wasn't much biology going in there, and I'm kind of a bio nerd, so I can't really say anything on that.
Rational, what would you say is the most complex thing you've learned in biology?
Things having to do with phylogenetics, probably.
And I don't really know who you are. Would you conclude that's the result of a design?
The field of phylogenetics, or the patterns of phylogenetics?
The field and the pattern.
The field, I guess the field and pattern, no, I don't think so.
Could anything convince you it was the result of design?
Yes.
What? But phylogenetics is not enough to do it? It's got to be a little more complex?
Well, like something specific within phylogenetics.
Okay. See? Someday, right? Maybe.
Sorry, I was just looking at the comments. Yeah, I mean, within phylogenetics, what would convince me would probably be and I know this is kind of off topic. I'm not going to stay for too long because I do have to head out soon. So I'll try to remain on topic as much as John wants.
Well, as I've stated with you before in relation to your favorite talking point, I'm just going to go out and wager that, just like last time we had this conversation, you still haven't gone and looked into the underlying necessities for your favorite talking point of phylogenetics. Am I correct?
What about the bioinformatics or information, stuff like that?
Yeah, and all the things that are necessary for that structure to even exist.
Well, I think in some cases, it's not necessary to know how it works to know that it does work. But in this case, I do know how it works.
So you've gone and looked into the underlying aspects that we've talked about before? Do you claim to not understand? And claim that you didn't need to understand? And you just reiterated you didn't need to understand?
I guess that would be correct.
Okay, cool. Awesome. What's up, Sal? How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, John? Sorry I missed you when I was in Tennessee.
Oh, no worries. I know you had a lot of stuff going on, and I'm busy in the middle of my move and stuff too. So it's
Yeah.
it's all good. Although I'm actually, man, this weekend's gonna be ridiculous. So I think I told you that I'm like building out that box truck, right?
Yeah. I mean, you did it in the chat somewhere on.
Yeah. Okay.
one of
So
these-
I've had a guy helping me, and we're getting really close. Well, let's say last weekend we were getting really close, and I'm talking like real close. Should have finished it up Monday. Dude has dropped off the face of the planet. I haven't been able to get a hold of him. He's not responding to text messages, phone calls, all those kinds of stuff. Dude is just gone, disappeared. And all the cuts, we made all the cuts for like he was making all the cuts for like panels and different things. They're not organized. So I'm sitting there looking at it today. I was in there today looking at it. I'm like, good Lord. I can figure out where everything's going to need to go, but it's in like organized chaos basically. And I have to be out of my house Tuesday night. So I was anticipating having all this accounted for. And yeah, so this weekend's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I figured you were busy, and I was rushing back to Virginia, and maybe another time. So I at least got to see Joe DeWeese. And so we're actually, at the time, I didn't realize that we actually had already gotten published. It's when I got home I found out I got published. So I appreciated your comment when I was talking about my peer-reviewed paper and this protein calculator. So
yeah, so what is I was kind of like cruising through that. What kind of so is y'all's calculator, can you like identify like the different subcomponents, like, oh, here's a beta sheet, here's a alpha helices, like a turn. Can you can you guys identify all that stuff from like if I paste in a sequence?
Not the algorithm we worked with, the direct coupling algorithm. There's even a wiki page. It can do that. It can do that. I mean, it'll build the 3D structure. And the reason, I'm kind of negative on using information for ID. This is the one time I would absolutely use it, because it's looking for hidden codes, hidden messages. And I don't know if you saw the part of the video where I was talking about it, cryptography. Mm-hmm. It's like an encrypted message that's spread across all the genomes of a variety of species. So like if you're trying to do a 3D plot, this is one thing I want to test. If you pull out the plants, your 3D plot won't work. If you pull out the animals, the 3D plot won't work. It's like there's no reason it should evolve just so that we could build these 3D plots. It's like it's common design. And so this has been circulating in the ID community for about 19 years, this idea. But this is the first time that we actually have, we as in the scientific world, actually has credible evidence to that effect. Now, the labs that are doing this, they'll say it's explained by evolution. Of course, that's just, we need a sharp mathematician to be able to disprove that, because I don't think that codes this sophisticated just wouldn't pop up randomly.
Right.
And so we have a complementary algorithm that there are a lot of proteins that don't have a well-defined structure. They're just so flexible, but they have interactions. In fact, a lot of higher order creatures use these flexible proteins. That's because it's like a pocket knife. There's not one set configuration.
Right.
And you can reconform it in so many different ways. And so our algorithm probably might do better predicting like the interactions, if not the shape. But the direct coupling analysis will predict alpha helices, and beta sheets and more. It'll predict that what they call so the alpha helice and beta sheets are what they call secondary structures.
Right.
The tertiary structure, which is kind of the collection of those secondary structures, is called the tertiary structure. It can predict tertiary structure, which is really awesome.
That's very cool. Well, part of the reason I was asking that question, because what's been going through my mind is if we can already identify the things like beta sheets and turns and helices and such, and we can identify the hidden coding message, like the code messaging inside of these overall structures across different aspects, right? What I'd be very interested in looking at would be if you could apply those kinds of identifiers and then run them through run those through the comparisons in phylogenetics, right? But then from there, do a calculation of what the functional bit variation would have to be in order to accomplish the transition. If evolution is true, what would the specific functional bit variation changes have to be? And because I'm anticipating that you would run into completely implausible changes, even with supposedly very similar sequences.
I thought I tried to show that in my debate with James Downard without even using the calculator.
Well, I mean, I picked up on what you were talking about there. That's kind of I've been thinking about that concept. That's why I was kind of messaging like, does it do this? Because I was seeing what you guys were. Yeah. I was reading through the paper while you guys were talking, and the just kept going through my mind. It was like, okay, so we've got these identifiers. Now, can we run this through one more layer, like filter layer, in terms of comparison on that context? And just be like, really? This is what you're arguing? Like, you're arguing that this evolved from that? Come on, get out of here.
Yeah, I don't think it would be. I think there are a lot of transition. I mean, being a creationist, we would like to show that things are not evolvable. But I actually am in the camp that says, that's not a hill to die on, as the saying goes. Because there's certainly transitions, like say from chimp to human, that are evolvable, especially the proteins that are 100% identical. So it's like, yeah, you don't even need to evolve it because they're identical. So that's why I said it probably won't be the best tool to try to identify impassable transitions, because there are some that are possible. And I try to tell creationists that, not every transition is absolutely impossible. There's some that are reasonable, even though I don't believe that they happen. I said the way to argue for the impossibility comes, universal common ancestry is like what I did for the eukaryote. And then ultimately, if we can show life is young, or the earth and fossil record are young, that would seal the deal.
But see, for me, from my perspective, a 100% identical sequence between chimp and human is not evidence for evolution. It's actually the direct antithesis of that, to me. Because, I mean, and you guys have heard me use this kind of analogy before, but it's like, this is like stating there's two websites that are both built on the WordPress content management system, and then arguing that one evolved from the other, versus both being utilized by a designer for the foundational functions. Like that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like when you're looking at supposedly evolving, from a common ancestor before, okay, what's your point? We're talking about the existence of the sequences that defy all probability. In terms of them existing at all, let alone having like, oh, this one evolved from that one. Like, come on, man. That's why I say on like the functional bit transitions and such, like, yeah, you can have slight variations, but it's not remotely plausible for entire, like, these sequences to form themselves. Like, I don't care how much time you have. Like, there isn't enough time. Like, the math shows there's not enough time for this to happen per their own timeline.
See, so I have a question for you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sal.
No, I was just saying that there are various ways to. I still think that the best argument will be the young Earth, and that I think the similarities are there to help us to understand our own biology. And I gave a talk on I call it the stairways to understanding. There's a progression that has been misinterpreted as like an evolutionary progression. It's actually a conceptual progression that is there optimized to help scientific understanding. And where the gap is really just enormous is the transition from prokaryotes to eukaryotes. I don't think James expected me to argue so forcefully. I think I really caught him off guard. He said, "Yo, you don't believe in the symbiote?" I said, "Yeah, 85% nuclear." Yeah, I just gave him the laundry list. I think I knocked him off this game. He didn't expect me.
Well, no, I mean, all he has is, "Well, show me who did it. Who did it?" And it's like he issued the standard. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm an idiot who's uninformed. My standard talking points are getting annihilated. Well, who's the creationist who did the research? Like, that's all you got? Like, that's your counter to my point? Like, that's how you address the question? Like, get out of town, man.
I'll just before I Rational wanted to say something, but I have one last thing to say on the program. One thing that's really interesting is that we couldn't do these 3D predictions, both the DCA algorithm, which is and then the SciCalc, which is the one that I worked on. If those creatures didn't exist, like say we were doing topoisomerase, so we had to do is take a topoisomerase from, I did it from a plant. We took a piece from a topoisomerase from a plant, then a yeast, and a variety of animals, insects, mammals, whatever. And if any of those are missing, it's like missing parts of a puzzle. The algorithm will choke if you get enough of them missing. And it's just kind of eerie that if you didn't have those other creatures, the algorithm fails. I said, that's telling me that the patterns of difference and similarity in the nested hierarchy are common design. It's not necessarily the result. I mean, one can still argue maybe universal common ancestry, but it still has to be designed. The pattern did not evolve randomly. And the evidence that if we pull these pieces, the algorithm will fail to make the 3D predictions. It's really good evidence of intelligent design. And so I think over the next several years, it's going to be interesting how this develops, because labs are competing to do this, even if they don't care about, this metaphysical stuff about intelligent design versus mindless processes. Like a lot of medical research, it's just moving forward because there's an intense need to know protein structure and interaction and function. So
yeah, Google's like assigning their DeepMind AI to the protein, the protein folding challenge. And there was like some competition like 6 months ago that the Google's AI like crushed everybody.
Well, I asked how it did it. I asked how it did it. It didn't do it with first principles, meaning you get the sequence and then you do all the electromagnetic and quantum mechanical interactions. No, it had to look at the database of other proteins, which includes other species. So again, biology is optimized to teach us. So it wouldn't have been able to do that unless it had a database of existing proteins. So again, biology is constructed for scientific discoverability.
So basically, like all AIs, you have to have access to pre-existing data in order to execute your pre-programmed functions. Who would have thought that? Real quick,
which means biology is teaching the AI algorithm. It's machine learning, but guess who the techer is?
Yeah,
God.
Exactly. Yep.
God's teaching your AI machine.
TJ Mac, I think it was. I saw you in the backstage. I couldn't let you in. You weren't connected to. You didn't have your mic connected or your cam. I can't let you in. Like, it literally won't let you in unless you at least have your mic connected. So if you want to come back in, make sure you got your mic on, and I can let you in. Andrew, something you wanted to say?
Yeah. So you mentioned this phrase that I haven't heard of before. I'm not familiar with it, of functional bit variation, and I was hoping you could elaborate on that and explain how that relates to comparative methods in phylogenetics, if you don't mind.
That term was used by Kirk Durston I've actually protested in the use of the word functional because it functional or whatever.
No, Durston didn't come up with it. Shostak came up with it, and hence what's his face? Who's the guy on his team? The mathematician actually originally came up with it. I forget his name. Yeah, that's not an ID generated concept.
So
Hazen, and
Robert Hazen
and Geffen, I think. It was the and Shostak was it was the functional information and the emergence of biocomplexity is where it originated from.
I know Robert Hazen. He taught at my school. I know him I'm acquainted with him personally. I don't know that he would remember me. He spoke at one of our intelligent design functions because he's an origin of life researcher. So as far as I know, Andrew, sometimes anytime they use the word functional or whatever, it's like that's kind of metaphysical. It's not something that let me just say personally, I feel uncomfortable with it, and things like that. I'm not going to try to defend, but the important thing is when you can use the math concepts to do something useful. Like when I mentioned the 3D structure prediction. So whatever you call the computation or the quantities and the variations, in Kirk Durston's paper, we call it mutual information. You don't have to call it information. You just call it some mathematical entity. And just as long as you can do the computation, that's what counts. So I'm sorry that I don't have a really good answer for you.
So just to clarify that.
Specifically in the context of, as an example, functional bits are, they're pretty well recognized at this point. It's which when you're talking about coding, you've got code items that have to be in place. It's either this one or that one that is going to ultimately end up in the expression of the function. And that's what you're having to account for in terms of when you're actually doing the calculations of what are the functional bits that can result in the end function that's being attempted. That's what you're having to account for. And in the context of what we're talking about, it's like, do I have to have this turn here? Otherwise, do I have a fail? That's the sort of things that we're talking about, and the overall structure.
Now, I think now that you mentioned Hazen's name, I think I remember seeing that paper, and when I read it, I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of translating it to bits. You can say probability. The way I approach proteins and DNA is, if this thing is changed, or if you change enough of this, it fails. It fails, and that's very clear. There are a lot of that can be established experimentally, and to me, that's what counts. Whether we call it bits or not, it's like, it's more important we're able to identify what will cause a failure.
That's the form. I just posted the formula in the side or in the private chat. But we have to look at it from the context of whether or not you want to use the term or not. It doesn't change the fact that we're looking at digital information, and there is bits of data that's being necessary to accomplish all this stuff. So ultimately, we're coming down to when you're talking about like finding out how much can you change before it fails, you're looking at how many of the functional bits can I remove before I have total failure of the overall function.
Yeah, and in some cases,
that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I'm working on a paper now with someone who does studies insulin receptors. He said, there's some locations, one amino acid change, entire collapse. It's like a password. But then there are other parts you might be able to change. It'll still get by. It's like kind of having a little bit of rubber shaved off your.
Yeah. And so that's why I was saying in context of can we identify where those types of examples, what you're talking about there, can we identify those? And then now you're looking at where are the functional critical junctions?
Yeah, sometimes our algorithm will pick that up, and it
Right,
uses
and that's where I'm going with all this is the, for example, purposes like with the Titan protein, right? There are that stupid things like 34,000 amino acids alone, right? There's like 40 something diseases that are a result of point mutations in various arenas, like different areas of that. 34,000, right? And you're saying you have this one error and you have X disease. You have one error over in this other spot, this disease, right? And I'm just using that one as an example, right? Like if you're talking about one change out of 34,000 can result in a disease. One? You're telling me that there's not? I mean, what? Okay, let's think about this. Let's delete 1,000. What do you think's gonna happen if one is gonna like cause collapse, like failure? You're telling me that 1,000 wouldn't also? That's the point I'm making in all this stuff. When we're looking at the actual changes, if we're identifying something like, as you know, like a turn, right? Okay, if it goes right instead of left, you're gonna have a failure, almost guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
It's almost guaranteed. So my point is that when we're identifying those kind of things in the sequences overall, okay, cool, we've got the wall. And I've used this example before, like in like on a website, right? Like, oh, cool. So it's this one function is collapsed because there's an error in the code, but you can visualize the other 90%, right? However, if you deleted the open command, you've probably collapsed the entire page and all the functions that you're viewing, and that once you did it higher up in the food chain, right? My point is that we can just like we can do in software code, like our code, we can identify different positions where it's like, oh, if all that got jacked up was, the size of a box, right? That's being rendered, but all the functions still exist. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. It still operates. That doesn't mean that we can identify, okay, if I delete this quote, quotation mark, or this parentheses, that it's not going to collapse the entire overall function or 90% of it or makes things non-functional overall. Like if you can't send anything to the database, it doesn't matter if it can look perfect. You can't send the information to the database. Who cares? Wait, anyway. Hang on a second. We got Ian and I know TJ Max been having a hard time with his phone going back. What's up, man? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. How are you?
Thanks, man. Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're coming through. Go ahead. You got the floor.
Cool.
What's going on?
Cool. Great stuff. Yeah. Well, firstly, I've never been in a debate or anything like that. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. So that's another thing. I just woke up. That's why I don't have a mic on either. So I missed the debate. I was obviously sleeping. But I just wanted to bring up an analogy. You guys are very smart and you guys have got experience in debates and that. But there's no real need to go so in depth and just to prove intelligent design. It's too obvious, and as much as you throw at them, they'll never admit it. And if you look, I put in your YouTube chat, I put in a analogy there with the pyramids. It's technically just theories how they were built. So in their mind, it actually evolved from a pebble. The pyramids weren't built. Come on, there's no proof of it if you think about it. So in their minds, the pyramids they just evolved from a pebble, where we would say, no, this is clearly designed, this is clearly built. So just because we can't say, oh, this is God, this is what he looks like, this is what he smells like, this, you can touch him and that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. Look at everything that we have. I mean, come on. This cannot come from nothing. Their God is nothing. Nothing exploded, so that's what created everything. So their God is nothing. I just think their the way they think the world came up is really stupid. And yeah, I just wanted to add that. My 2 cents from Cape Town, South Africa.
I appreciate you joining us. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that was the irony of what I dealt with tonight.
Hey, can y'all hear me? Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good, man. I know you've been trying to say something for a while. So what's going on, man? How are you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Nah, I'm good, man. Shoot, to be honest, like I just like kind of found this channel because I was scrolling through like some Ken Hovind videos or whatever, and like, I think it was the one where like he was debating. I think his name was Atheist Junior, and then like I like saw like a video on you like talking about that. I don't know, he just kind of I be going down that rabbit hole sometime, but nah, man, I'm just listening in and whatnot. I mean, I've done like kind of debates like here and there. I wouldn't say I'm like, you know what I'm saying, good at it or whatever, you know, like, cause y'all be talking about the like the genetics and the mathematics and whatnot. Like that ain't, you know what I'm saying, that's not really like my cup of tea. But like, you know what I'm saying, I've talked about, I guess, like morality, or you know, or what generally like best explains like reality, or like our reasoning and whatnot. It's more like kind of, I guess, more philosophical, if you will, type stuff. But I like listening to stuff like this too. It's like I can understand what y'all saying, but I can't. But I low key can, like type stuff. Like I can sort of follow what
You're
y'all are.
saying you can follow it conceptually. You might not be able to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
recreate.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that
I
makes sense.
get what y'all mean without knowing like the details of what y'all saying type stuff. Um, but yeah, like nah, I think your channel is pretty dope, man. I think it's kind of slept on out there because you know a lot of channels they be kind of it kind of reminds me of David Wood. I'm pretty sure you heard of him
Oh
with the
yeah.
Act 17. Yeah, it's like you know you're real aggressive with him. You know what I'm saying? You just straightforward with him. You know what I'm saying? Objective. A lot of these channels they try to be oh you want to be all nice and you know whatnot. Try to look, man. Sometimes to get through a certain type of people, especially internet atheists, you just gotta tell them what it is, man. You know what I'm saying? You can't you can't play around with them, man. Cause nah, I'd have made that mistake before, bro. It's like you can come up with it's like they will find 100 million excuses before they actually like, you know what I'm saying? If you quote something from the Bible, oh, you're making arguments from the Bible. Yeah, it's not valid. You know what I'm saying? You use an analogy. Oh, you're just using God in the gap. You're saying this and this, therefore God. Like, bro, and anytime any of their little favorite like internet idols, I remember rest in peace, Frank Turk debated Christopher Hitchens, and whatnot. And like dead ass, bro, that I've never seen a group of people get so mad as the comment sections of that debate, bro. Like it doesn't matter how bad their favorite internet debaters who really can't debate like that. Had something in my throat. But yeah, like it.
Man,
Nah, bro. I
Aaron
just
Raw does never. Aaron Raw never needs to debate ever again. That dude is so bad. It's painful to listen to, and the amount of rage.
it is just.
He's
Oh
a
no.
clown.
And
At this
then
point, he's become a clown show.
Another
pretty
one of their
much
arguments.
is it.
No, go for it.
Go ahead. I'll stop talking.
Oh, okay. So another one of their arguments or things that they always say is, you know, what is your education? How much education
Yeah.
do you have? I'm qualified. I'm an IT engineer. I've studied project management and I got business management behind my name. Does that now do I qualify to be a correct person to give out evidence for creation or intelligent design just because I got a few qualifications behind my name? That's ridiculous. I know people that have got zero qualification that have dropped out of school, and they are way smarter than me. Just because I got some education doesn't mean I'm not credible or can give the correct evidence.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I say that to people all the time. I mean, if you actually go and look at the list of the most powerful and most successful people on the planet, a good percentage of them dropped out of college. So,
Because it ain't
like,
about what you know; it's about who you know. And that's just reality.
well, that and your capabilities. I mean, like,
That too.
No, I agree with you that some of these folks did have some potential, additional like little factors for bringing them along. But like, when you look at the trend, especially in the modern era, of the ability for people to come from nothing and be able to create their own future, and where does that come from? Well, a huge portion of it stems from the reality that we now have access to information that is at our fingertips, that we can teach ourselves, we can read, we can access in virtual real time. the correct answer to a solution. Like, so myself as an example. So like my background is business tech, right? I dropped out of college, started a business, was able to turn it into a decently successful company, like all those different things, right? It turns out for all the idiots who have never gone out and done anything for themselves, if you're the owner and you're the boss, nobody asks where you went to college.
Exactly.
Like, what's your degree in? I'm the owner of the company. Like, you're doing business with me. Like that's the deal here. Like, did I hire a whole boatload of people that had degrees and all that kind of stuff? Yep, I did. Now, did I go back to college and get my degree and all that kind of stuff? Yes, I did later on. But I'd already gone had done business with publicly traded companies and stood in the boardrooms with very influential people and like got their business and all that kind of stuff. Like, been there, done that. Which is why I get so much entertainment from all these little children on YouTube who are like, "Do you have a PhD in X?" It's like, no, I don't. However, I have a pretty decent IQ, and I have access to information that I can go and like read for myself and comprehend. You might not be able to comprehend it. That's not my problem. I can comprehend it. And sidebar for everybody, I have actually, just to basically ram do you have the piece of paper up somebody's ass, I've actually been looking into like the cost benefit analysis of like getting like a biology degree, right? And the amount of time and the capital requirement to go and get something that I would never use professionally has zero worth for me. Like, why would I go and spend no less than 2.5 years and probably between 20 and 40 grand on something that I'm not going to use when I can go and look? I can take the exact same classes for free. The literal same classes for free through Open MIT, Harvard X, Yale, Oxford. I can take the exact classes. Classes. And you're telling me that doesn't give me the exact same amount of knowledge as the person who went and paid a ridiculous sum of money and spent exorbitant amounts of time because of the linear structure that traditional universities are set up in. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's just dumb.
I said,
that's bad investment. It's bad investment on in utilization of your time. And I think a lot of people who are so tied up in academia, they don't really contemplate real world practical application of information. It's just, do you have the supposed, piece of paper that means that, oh, wait, before you had it, you didn't understand this. Now that you do have it, I guess magically you do. It's like, that makes no sense. I know Sal talks about this sometimes, like in biological research, like they're bringing in physicists and mathematicians and computer scientists and engineers, all this kind of stuff, because it's like, oh, wait a minute. This biology degree stuff doesn't go far enough. Like, you have to have all knowledge in all of these different fields to be able to even have a remote sense of understanding. You can't just say, oh, well, I've got this checkbox, therefore I can understand it all, when you have to account for all these other things. Anyway, enough of my tangent there.
A lot of computer programmers, a lot of them haven't studied. It's all self-taught. I've worked for a lot of software development companies, and most of the developers, they're all self-taught. And
Ian, I used to have developers that worked for me, right, in my company, and I got so annoyed with the quote unquote computer science degree holding individuals, right? I literally shifted. This is a decade ago. I shifted up my hiring process to, it's actually what we did is actually very common now, but my job descriptions that were posted were literally half done functions in code, right? That was the description. That was the job description. And in code, and like commented into the code was, finish this, send us the source code, you got yourself an interview.
But remember, that evolved from a calculator.
Of
So
course.
So
and guess what happened? The number of job applications I would get plummeted because people are lazy. But guess what? The people who applied, almost to a T, I think almost all of them were self-taught, and they were some of the most badass devs I've ever come across. And several of them now currently work for Google and they've been hired by, since I sold the company and stuff, like they've gone on to do awesome stuff at, major players, right? And the commonality, to the point you were making, the commonality now is they don't give a rat's ass where you got your degree from. They want to know, they're going to interview you. The lead devs and everybody are going to come talk to you. You're going to do performance tests, and they're going to figure out what you know and what you can back up. And they're going to look at what you built before. That's what's happening. And if you can back up my favorite statement is the difference between confidence and arrogance is being able to back up your BS. And in this context, it's, do you have the skills? Can you back up what you claim? If so, we'll give you a shot. Yeah. And that's where the world is now. And because the reality is, and as you know, I'm sure, what's being taught in most of our universities, especially in computer science, is outdated before you got the degree. What you were being taught is outdated.
Exactly. We were about 4 years or something behind on the software that we were busy learning and that. But to be honest, I'm not even in that line anymore. I also got my own business, do my own thing now. But yeah, when I left college, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. My first job, I felt absolutely dumb. Stupid. Everything that I actually learned was just doing it, and then doing self research, because for me at college it was regurgitation. This is what this is now. You write your paper, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I know the answer, and it's like, nah. I just found it really stupid. And,
and as you know too, in software, I mean, it's like you have to be on the fly. You have to account for new. You have to create the solution. Like, you're the one that's coming up with the answer to the question. Now, somebody else might have faced a very similar question. You're able to get an idea. I mean, here's what gets me, man. And this applies to the overall aspect of, like, this is why I like phylogenetics and stuff in terms of that, like, supposedly being proof of evolution and such. It's why I just want to laugh them out of the room. It's like, dude, okay, it's called GitHub, okay, and people use libraries out the wazoo because they would be considered a moron if they rewrote some of the most basic functions from scratch. You'd be an idiot. Like, it would be a waste of time. You would be fired if you're like, no, I've got to rewrite this from scratch. And they'd be like, bro, it's on GitHub, man. Like, just go get the script and like modify it, incorporate it into our system. And you're like, no. I'm going to write it from scratch. It needs to be written from scratch. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I know as an employer, if I had a dev that worked for me who was doing that, I would have fired him because they would have been a waste of my time and my money.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's like, but in the context of evolution, supposedly the similarities and slight modifications of functions across species and, or different organisms, that's somehow evidence against a designer. And to me, that
ways.
Like how do you come up with this? It just makes no sense. I'm not saying you can't like look at it and be like, oh, well, this is like version 7.2. Like, okay, fine. I get you can extrapolate that out and be like, oh, there was a modification here to this piece and whatnot. That doesn't mean that the root the root script popped into existence without being written. Like, come on, man!
A lot of code is reused, and it's like you're saying that's complete evidence for intelligent design. Because for instance, a skateboard. Oh no, I'm not going to use a skateboard. Let's use a car. In Europe, I think it's Britain, that they created that. What's that 3-wheel thing? The Reliant Robin.
Dude, okay, I grew up in England. My father bought one of those stupid 3-wheelers. Literally, I kid you not, it was literally like 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, my dad we're driving home. We see one of those stupid things, Robin Reliant. But he buys it. Those things are made out of fiberglass. Okay, you literally, if you're driving by yourself, you literally need. The recommendation was to put bricks in the passenger side, otherwise you might flip over.
You'll flip,
because you're misbalanced as the driver. Continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so do we see a Reliant Robin shaped on 4 wheels? No, it's a. Can I swear on you? It's a shit design. So it never. If evolution was now, for instance, true, we would see something that looks like something, but with extra legs or whatever. I'm just giving an example now. Like they say we evolved from monkeys. How awesome would it be to have a tail now? If I need to grab a coffee next to me or whatever, my hands are full. I wouldn't mind a tail to grab and then fetch this. Why would I lose it? No, absolute nonsense. How can you go from from being in the ocean, and then all of a sudden you can breathe? Or where does male and female come from? Was the first amoeba a male, and then when he was angry with himself and he told himself to go fuck himself, and then he had another baby? And then there's another amoeba, and now he says, "Oh, cool! There's someone that looks different to me. Let's have another." No, man, it's retarded. No, I don't even know if I can say that word. It's not the R word is not bad in South Africa. It's stupid. I just think it's so stupid.
Yeah,
I don't want to say anything stupid, but like I just thought about something. So, what God are the atheists trying to disprove? Because all you can really get out of a scientific method is things within creation. You use material things, only things that you can observe within this reality, to the sort of, it explains creation essentially. You know what I'm saying? At least that's kind of like an over summarization of what science generally does. And when they try to use these purely scientific examples to try to disprove a being which for thousands of years of scripture has been described as being beyond this material reality, a being that would be completely, you know what I'm saying, like beyond any material existence. I mean, it created the damn, material existence. It's like when they use these pure scientific methods, I really don't understand what they're trying to disprove, because the entire question isn't even based around. Am I dumb for saying that? It's not even based around a material consensus. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're completely on point. I mean, and it's a case in point. And Sal talks about this on a regular basis too in his debates. Like one of the standard talking points we hear is God of the gaps, argument of incredulity, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, you guys don't even understand what we're talking about.
Like, for real,
we're arguing.
They've got time of the gaps,
right? Like, you're claiming that we don't know what we're talking about. Per your own admission, you don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, but you're claiming I'm being incredulous when you don't understand what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
You're admitting that you're an uninformed idiot, and either
like
haven't actually used your brain to analyze the information and come to a conclusion, or you lack the capacity to do so.
Yeah.
And you're wearing a freaking onesie in a debate as an adult. I mean, I can't
know what you're talking about.
What's a onesie? I didn't get that.
Okay, Sal, do you? Okay,
it's a sleeping wetsuit.
Okay, Sal, Sal, okay, what's that the Christmas movie where the kid like sticks his tongue to the gets stuck to the pole? You know what I'm talking about? The old one? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember how he's wearing like the reindeer, like it's like his PJs are all one piece? That's
okay.
That's a onesie, okay? So my dumbass opponent tonight is a grown man who was doing the debate in a onesie with the hood
Damn,
up.
I missed it.
With the hood up. Okay.
Was it a modern day debate?
Yes.
Yeah, I must go watch it.
I didn't know that was unfashionable.
Hey, all the spacemen.
I mean,
wear
hey, at least he's comfortable.
I mean, hey, if you're 10 years old,
Shit.
fine, wear a onesie, bro. Like my daughter wears onesies. I mean, she's 10.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine, no problem. She's freaking adorable when she like dresses up as a unicorn and stuff. Like, okay,
I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna check it out now.
Yeah, you get all different.
I really just thought it was a
I
jacket.
gotta
I didn't know it was a onesie.
No, Sal. At one point, I was like, "Dude, are you wearing a onesie?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." And I'm like,
man.
And that's part of the reason I got pissed off at James when he was like telling me to be nicer. I'm like, I'm debating a dude in a onesie at 11 o'clock at night on modern day debate.
Remember, he may have a PhD, so it's fun.
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's an accredited university, so he's legit. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I mean, dude, Sal, this guy was claiming that there is no digital code. He was claiming that a codon doesn't equal an amino acid. What are you laughing at? Are you looking at it now?
I thought it was a jacket. I didn't know it was that's a onesie.
Dude, it's got ears. It has ears. A grown man is wearing a onesie. I mean, yeah, that's part of the reason Like, I can't take some of these guys seriously. Like, if you're going to come here and have a
I don't
conversation,
take any internet atheist seriously. I can't.
What I find
Sorry.
very interesting though is in the US and European countries, the God or intelligent design idea, or I would call it a truth, but let's call it an idea or theory, is really going downhill. Where in our countries, in South Africa, and I think even Australia, we're increasing in our understanding and I want to say beliefs, because we technically cannot say yes, he is there, but I would say more people believe in intelligent design and in, I would say, religions. And religions, they all get to the same point in the end. So I think they all got validity, or what's the word I'm looking for there. But in your guys' country and Europe and that, I think the internet and all these movie stars, and you guys are big into YouTube. When I watch some of your videos on YouTube, it's like, you're going to be on YouTube. You said that in South Africa, people don't watch YouTube, really.
Right.
Or they watch it, but it's not a massive thing. If you know what I mean, it's not like massive.
It's not necessarily their primary source.
Yeah,
secondary, or like, oh yeah, let's see what's on YouTube. It's versus on it every day, like Americans are.
Yeah,
now,
and I think that's why it's like God is not a big thing, or intelligent design is not a big thing. It's just everyone, their mind is not looking in the correct direction.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, and for folks, I made a reference to this in the debate, but I just happen to have this clip available. And Ian, given your background, this will crack you up. But this was from my very first debate, ladies and gentlemen, with RJ Downard, who Sal actually took on. Was that end of last week, Sal, when you took on Downard? But
yes, Friday afternoon. I'm a little bit like, why didn't I appreciated being in a 12-hour show, but I got drowned out by the other guys.
Oh yeah, that was a dumpster fire. But yeah, this was from my very first debate on YouTube, and it's what really made me one of the things that made me just be like, this is actually what people think. This is mind blowing. So go ahead and listen.
The intricacies of our DNA code. Are you concluding that the equivalent of Google, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and everything else could come into existence by chance without an intelligent designer?
I suspect so, but again, that's an origins or bust question, which is not what I was asked to discuss. I want to get back to some things where I can figure out where you stand on other things. Let's talk about the Cambrian explosion. Are you?
I'm just like, what? I can't even. You think that could? I suspect so.
That guy is a joke.
I mean, it's like either that's a yes or a no question. Buddy. Like in no other scenario would anybody be taken seriously if they actually said. I mean, honestly, no. The Google search algorithm that Sergey Brin and whatever the guy's name was came up with in 1999 or whatever it was. Like, yeah, that created itself, and then ultimately Google evolved. Like. Go away, man. Like, you're an idiot. You deserve to be in a padded cell in your onesie at this point.
They're already starting to say that AI software is going to start developing itself. They're already saying that. So that's what's that word? I was watching it yesterday where they say it's like future implant.
You're talking about the digital singularity? I think it's the term. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can ask.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, so like, I just gotta add, why? I mean, I really know the reason why, but it's like, really though, like, if anyone's in the audience really thinking this, why is evolution really being like so pushed in like these schools, especially like secular countries, across there? I think what was it, like Northern Ireland one? I heard Sweden was one, type stuff, like those really secular places. Why is it that they just keep hammering? And if you really take 10 honest seconds to think about the entire premise of evolution, even from the half-truths they tell you in school, how can you really sit there? So here's what they're saying. In the beginning, there was nothing. I was taught this in school, in my high school. I just graduated last year. They said in the beginning was nothing, right? And then, boom, a big bang happened. And from that bang, all the time, space, and matter in the universe just popped into existence. No God, no intelligent mind, no nothing. Just nothing then something. So
So you're,
I get it. Teenagers, my bad. But like teenagers are like really like young and dumb or whatever. But like, come on, how are we falling?
so
Well,
is your question why they're pushing it?
I mean, yeah, like pretty much, because I know it's a government protected religion, and you know, it's of course being a Christian, I believe it's prophecy. You know what I'm saying, fulfilling itself, because you know any other explanation demands God, and they don't want that. But like, you know, aside from that, like, come on though, like, how is
Yeah, dude,
everyone buying this?
I'll send you my email because this is going to go down a long, deep rabbit hole, and I don't think it's right on this on John's channel here. And it feels like I'm taking over. So it's my first time I'm ever doing something like this, and I'm really enjoying it. So I think I'm going to send you my email. Let's stay in
All right,
touch,
good.
and we'll set up a chat, and we can actually chat about this because there's a lot of
Yeah.
shit I can tell
yeah,
you.
there's so
Yeah,
many,
bro,
there's
'cause-
so many facets to that question,
This,
man. I mean,
I'm
that-
35 years old, so there's my email address. I'm still a Hotmail
I'm
account.
19, bro. Like, hey, I don't know if y'all seen Naruto, but I broke the Genjutsu at an early age. I could see through all the bullcrap. You know what I'm saying?
But then,
Like,
well,
I
yeah,
damn near
listen,
wanted to
I'm-
get into it with one of the teachers when he brought up that, like, bro, how can you teach that I was a damn monkey man that evolved from this amoeba that came from a rock? They think we're crazy because we believe that it rained in the flood for like 7 days in the flood of Noah. They think it rained for millions of years. What are
No,
we
man.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
well,
But
well,
yeah, send
one of the
me an
things you have
email.
to- one of the things you have to, yeah, check in, look in the private chat because he posted his email there.
All right.
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
things you really have to contemplate in this stuff, and this is kind of a top level point that you guys can discuss in email. Ultimately, if evolution is true, then there is no external accountability or there's no external requirements for our existence. Therefore, those in power can make them whatever they want in terms of societal norms and structure and positioning and all that kind of stuff, right? And those who say otherwise are either ignorant of history or they're actively attempting to keep the average person from understanding it. I mean, eugenics is the direct outcome of Darwinism. Like,
Oh yeah.
this is not a hidden, this is not some crazy secret. Like, this is known, this is stated in their writings of like where it came from, right? We can directly trace the majority of genocide of the 20th century to some facet of like Darwinism at the root. That's just a fact. And people like just gloss over it. They're trying to rewrite history or just completely ignore it. I mean, when you look at the a lot of education systems in Western civilization specifically that are completely removing giant chunks of history from the education system. Like, they're not even, it's not just they're rewriting it, they're not even teaching it. And
Bruh, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't even know what happened, then how do you have an opinion on what happened? Oh wait, you can't. You can't have an educated opinion. And like, I had an interaction a couple years ago with a group of college kids going to a very high level university, and they didn't know what the Cold War was, and couldn't explain it, and all the different facets of what was going on, what were the foundational like what happened.
The Cold War?
The Cold War. And
Wow.
I'm like, if you don't know what the Cold War was and what was the paradigm, like the differences between the two sides and like culturally, philosophically, religiously, like all these different like the differences, the stark differences, right? If you don't even understand how all that is, then you're uninformed about like how we're in this, like how civilization is and what's going on right now as the direct outcome of that whole debacle, right? And how it came out of World War II and like what was going on prior to World War II and during World War II, which ultimately resulted in, I mean, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, if you don't know this stuff, And it's kind of like same kind of premise that I'm talking about right now in relation to my debate tonight, for example, of if you don't even know what protein synthesis is, but then you're going to claim that there's nothing involved in it that could be evidence in favor of intelligent agency. If you don't even know how it works, you shouldn't even be having a conversation about whether or not it's evidence for or against. If you don't know what the hell you're talking about, like, per your own admission, you don't know what it is. Don't claim whether something is or is not evidence for or against a premise. And it's like, anyway, I yield.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like I remember in history, they kind of like skip over what I would think would be major talking points of history, like the Crusades, for example. Although I feel like I know why they don't talk about the Crusades in history, because as they really talk about it right, people, especially the new internet atheists, oh, the Crusades, look at what these crazy Christians used to do. But they don't know what the initial foundation of the crusade was for, because the reason why the crusades were even made in the first place was because the Muslims of the time, like the Islamic nation, was having a field day across Europe. They don't talk about that, but they were just going off, and eventually these countries got together and got these crusades as a sort of military. They were defending their nation because the Muslims was wilding. Oh, but they don't want to talk about that because Islam is the most peaceful, but Jesus is supposed to be better. Muhammad's supposed to be better than Jesus these days. You know what I'm saying? The way they pushing Muslim, a terrorist attack goes off. Oh, he does not represent Islam. A Christian does something bad, everybody's on his tail. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy how inverted the world is gotten. Now, of course, I know why it was revealed to me, but if anyone's like listening, like thinking about it, it's like, I'm not trying to do nothing like, bogart your channel or whatever, but like, just honestly think like this stuff is crazy. They don't talk about major, because a lot of history actually dates back to characters, like biblical figures in the Bible. If you really like go back and do some honest history, they don't talk about that. They talk about the little 1400s foundation of America. Then they go back in millions of years, and then they don't bring it up again. Maybe they'll talk about stuff that happened in the 1900s or whatever. They barely talk about slavery. Like, you take away the history from the people, they're doomed to repeat it. I'm gonna stop talking, though, bro. I'm gonna stop talking.
No, it's a very very true statement of those without refuse to accept history destined to repeat it. I mean, same thing like definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I mean, it's an ongoing it's just an ongoing talk. I tell you, the other thing that really blows my mind about YouTube atheists is if you don't, in conversation, if you make assumptions that they can't possibly be this stupid and not require you to expound on every single possible talking point on a concept, and you just like accept like, hey, they must be smart enough to comprehend like this portion of it, let's focus on this little piece, then they immediately like grasp onto that and start claiming like, oh, well, you're ignoring all of this other stuff. Like, are you saying that none of this exists? It's like, I'm sorry, I can't give you a history lesson on every single facet when we're talking about a specific point, and then you claim that the point I'm talking about doesn't exist unless I account for every single other aspect, while you also admit that you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. What? It makes no sense. It drives me up the wall. I just, anyway.
Yeah.
Sal, it looks like you've been having some fun over there. What are you up to?
I'm executor of Mom's estate, so I'm filling it out while I fellowship with you all. It's kind of lonely, kind of working by yourself. So it actually feels kind of good to have kind of company, because this house is pretty empty right now.
What you mean?
I bet. Man.
I'm babysitting right now.
Because, if I didn't have you guys on the internet, it'd be really rough getting through what I've been going through the last month.
Oh, did your wife pass? Did your wife pass?
My mother, she was 95.
Oh, your mother.
Yeah, I've been taking care of her for 18 years since I was the primary.
Wow. So it's a good life.
That is a good long life, man.
Yeah, my
Hopefully
grandmother
she-
passed last year June, I think it was, and she was 92, and she passed away peacefully. No illnesses, nothing like that. So
Yeah. Well, because I've been the primary caregiver, it's usually rougher on the primary caregiver because I was with her
Yeah.
24/7. So that's why it just feels really good to just hear people talking because I don't feel so alone.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah,
No,
thanks for your sympathies, guys.
Yeah, I cannot say I know how you feel. I don't think anyone can say that. But yeah, dude, just be strong.
Thank you.
And,
Thank
yeah.
you. John, before I forget, I wanted to thank you for debating James Downard. I watched that debate carefully. I listened to it when I was driving back from Memphis. I said, I think I could beat this guy.
Yeah, that guy's he's a clown. I tell you, my second debate with him was even more of a dumpster fire than the first one. I remember when I wrote my opening statement. Actually, in both my first debate and my second debate with him, I made some predictions, right? And most of them came true. Let's just say in this debate. And so in my opening statement, I'm like, so just in anticipation, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that as soon as a point is made, Downard is just going to be like, where's the literature? Where's the literature on this? So I'm going to pull, in anticipation, I'm paraphrasing myself. It's like, so in anticipation of that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the literature first and show it on screen. And so and here's my references so that this isn't a talking point for him, right? Yeah. Fast forward into the debate. I would make a point in reference. Where's the literature? I'm like, dude, I literally brought this up in my opening statement and provided the references so you wouldn't have this escape mechanism. And now you're trying to use your escape mechanism that I predicted you were going to try and do, and I accounted for up front. So were you not paying attention? Did you not see the references that you're always clamoring for that I showed? And then he went into meltdown. It was hilarious. But yeah, it's amazing. You account for them, make the prediction, showcase exactly what they demand, and then they act like it didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
like that one.
Personally, I'm not. I told James that I only will start debating really as a favor to James Coons, modern day debate. But I don't find it really productive to interact with these guys. And then sometimes when I'm on modern day debate, I end up having all these trolls show up on my channel. And I don't want to have to deal with you guys, It's like I really want to go to other venues. Like I might try visiting, people invite me to their whatever gathering, I'll come out personal. This showing up on modern day debate where like 95% are people that are closed-minded. It's just not worth my time. It is good practice, and it also does show that I'm willing to engage the opponents, but that's about it.
Well, see, here's one of the things that you and I are different on, Sal. I agree with everything you just said about the majority of the audience. I mean, I said it on the I said to James tonight, I'm like, well, we all know that 95% of the audience hates me. I get a tremendous amount of entertainment from all of the trash talkers. They kind of crack me up, to be honest. I'm just like, yeah, let's repeat that same moronic talking point. Admit you don't know what you're talking about, and then claim that I'm ignorant. Sweet. I mean, I haven't gotten over the fact, and I know you guys probably didn't see this, but I got my opponent tonight to concede that something was evidence on multiple occasions. Like he conceded it was evidence. And then proceeded to claim that because I couldn't show who the designer was, therefore it wasn't actually evidence. Look, so you just said it was.
Yeah.
You're saying that it is unless I can show who did it? Like that's moronic. If you're gonna actually make that claim, Yeah.
So let's go back to the pyramids. So show me who built the pyramids. I'm telling you, it evolved from a pebble.
Well, we know.
Prove to me.
No. We know that humans designed it. Therefore, a human must have designed it.
Nah, bro, it's the aliens. You didn't know? Aliens came down, and because a human can't build something that size, even though genetic entropy, we were better back then. But now we don't.
Yeah, but they can't prove that it was built by humans. They theorize that this is how they built it, but they still don't have
Their
any
religion won't
evidence or
let them.
proof.
I gotta tell you what, I do get a tremendous amount of entertainment from the Ancient Aliens episodes about the about the pyramids. Man, some of that stuff is yeah. So ancient alien theorists say that there must have been unidentified flying objects that came down with special levitation technology, and that's how they were actually able to get all of those stones up. Although as a sidebar, some of the in line with that whole, there must have been some kind of technology that we don't have yet. We don't currently have. I would actually agree with that hypothesis that they did have access to some kind of technology. I mean, because you think about like some of the, especially the ones like down in South America, where the individual stones are like 200 tons. Like we would have to have multiple helicopters to do that. They somehow got this stone to the top of a mountain and then built a freaking city out of them. And I'm like, they had some kind of tech. There's no way.
So have you done the research on things electromagnetism or the way they use magnets to lift objects up?
I know what you're talking about. I haven't researched, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen some of the hypotheses about this stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Stuff.
And I think, well, that's my theory, that I feel that's most likely how they got those stones up there, all those massive boulders. But yeah, I've been doing a bit of research on that, and I find that extremely interesting. And I've even started looking into the whole pre-our electricity that we have, how they had free power then, the way they use magnets and Tesla coils. And so I can't remember I'm still too new to this stuff. I can't regurgitate.
I know what you're talking about. I've seen some of the stuff on the theories on being able to concentrate and access the Earth's electromagnetic field.
Yes.
And
very, very interesting.
Channel it into, because like one of the common like dismissals of that is, it's like it can't be focused. It's just too weak to be able to be in terms not weak from a macro level, but weak from a general perspective to be able to actually focus and such. And I'm like, well, that's what Tesla claimed to have done, was figured out how to focus it. And if you're able to do so, then it takes on an entirely different context.
Yeah, but this is even before Tesla's time.
So, go ahead, Tom. What are you saying?
No, because I have been interested in renewable energy. And even my electromagnetic theory professor pointed out there's a huge potential difference. The problem is it doesn't have a lot of current. So I actually looked into the literature carefully to see, and there are devices that can draw out a little bit of power, and it's really small. Even though the voltage is high, the amount of current as in amperes is so small, you only get just like a few watts. It's not. It's one of these situations. It's just like when you have static electricity, like when you touch a doorknob on a wintry day because it's so dry. It could be up to 30,000 volts, but it doesn't have any real punch to it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
I get that point. Your point you're making this, Albert. I think there's additional things you have to account for, right? So one, you have to say you're operating from what's the current level of the Earth's magnetic field, number one, which we know has declined. So there's that one facet. I'm not saying it would exponentially increase or anything, but there's that one thing to account for. And then secondarily, you also have to operate from the perspective of what is the scale in which it's being accessed. And so if we're only doing it on a little blip, right, in terms of our plug-in, if you will, then there's not much to access. That's why that's some of the theories on the things like what were the original, not the later version, but the earliest versions of the pyramids. Like, were those actually macro, like I say macro, large scale focus points, if you will. and working in unison and conjunction. And because like some of the stuff, or like some of the things they've discovered, and the way different ruins, and this isn't just for pyramids, this other stuff, were structured. Like if you step inside of what appears to be like a circuit, you have an exponentially higher concentration of electromagnetic field. And if you step on the outside, it plummets. And that's going into the ruins of something that used to be there. And they found them all over the world. And so one of the things you have to think about is like, okay, if it's the structure and the way these things are designed is creating a measurable concentration. Like you're outside, it's this, you step inside, it's that. And that's the ruins that's left. We don't actually know what was on top. Like when it all worked together, was there some way that they were being able to focus all of this that we just aren't unaware of? And I'm not saying that's 100%, oh, that must be what it is. I'm just saying I think that very often, like so many things in modern society, we operate from this perspective that, oh, we haven't figured it out, therefore I'm not saying this about you, Sal, I'm talking in general. Like we haven't figured it out, therefore there's no way that a ancient civilization could have. Because
we're evolving.
Oh yeah, bro. Eventually, we're gonna evolve into fucking machines. Male machine. Agenda 2030 type stuff.
Yeah, my kids will be cell phones one day.
Oh yeah, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have idiots like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that we live in the Matrix anyway. So why not? Why not go full blown video game?
I tell you what, I actually have no problem with us living in the Matrix, like in a video game. I really don't. Yeah. When you look at all of the code that's running around that's enabling life to exist, I don't really find it that much more difficult to think that the entirety of the universe is a simulation, if you will. The hologram, there's the hologram theories and all that stuff. But like one of the things that always cracks me up about there's not enough, one of the common counterpoints to that is, oh, well, how could there possibly be enough processing power to like render the universe? I'm like, okay. In VR, if you put on a freaking VR headset and you're focused on a specific deal, do you actually think the rest of the universe is actually being rendered when you're not looking at it? No. Okay, so let's just for hypothetical purposes, let's say all of the people, the intelligent agents in the universe are on planet Earth. Everything around us would have to be being rendered, right? Yeah. But just like if you're in a VR environment and you're like looking off into the distance, you're seeing an image, but all of the details of it are not being rendered at that moment, right? Like if you like walked over to the next city or whatever, obviously now it's going to start being rendered. Now that you're in the new environment, right? But when you're in VR, you're 100 miles away. Everything that's happening 100 miles away from you is not being rendered at that moment. Like your computer is not having to process all that information, right? Yeah. So again, going back to the whole point of like, if we're actually, our planet, right, is what's being rendered, the amount of processing power in relation to what would be necessary if the entirety of the universe was having to be rendered all the time is a totally different context. And anyway, sorry for my long way.
It would still require intelligent design. That's the beautiful part.
Well, of course it would. I mean, obviously at that point, it's 100%. You have to have it. But to me, to dismiss that premise when our own technology and our own attempts to create, micro environments already negates that objection. It's like, yeah, dude, if your VR set was having to do all this stuff, you're right. It would blow up immediately. It would shut down instantly if you're having to do all that kind of processing. But that's not what's happening. We've accounted for this. So you're telling me that the supreme intelligence that enables the universe has created the ultimate VR wouldn't have thought of that? Come on. Anyway.
It's because these people, honestly, like the first problem that they typically run into is that they are immediately putting themselves on a standard relative or above God to make a lot of the objections that they do. And I catch this a lot, even with these supposed I'm gonna call them the champions of atheism. You know what I'm saying? Like Richard Dawkins, Hey, Stephen Hawking did it too. Rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? Christopher Hitchens, Peter Singer, all these guys, like, in order to make these objections that they make, it's like they are putting themselves on a standard near to or above God in order to ridicule, or, you know what I'm saying yeah, what he's doing isn't perfect and this, and that. Guys, come on. Like, that's clearly they don't understand the whole gist of God, because this would be a being by definition beyond our comprehension. We are finite material beings. All right. There is no way our little mind can comprehend it. God, like, come on. Like, it's I don't know, bro. I feel like, and maybe it's closed-minded of me to say, but the way they sort of approach this is like, it's like when I watch these guys debate, it's like they're arguing with two different deities, because one is saying the whole, oh, who created God? Well, this and that. Oh, well, science, this and that. Are you trying to disprove Yahweh or Thor? Like I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't
No,
really get
I
it.
agree with what you're saying. I mean, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I think one of the other ironies of that is, okay, let's assume that God is the supreme being, right? And has the capacity to like create universes and such. Do you not? But however, we're finite. We operate from a temporally finite scale. We're a microcosm inside of the universe. We're a microcosm on our own freaking planet, right?
Yep.
Do you not think that God would have to render himself in a format that would be comprehensible to us, but not necessarily be all that he is, right? So one of the talking points you kind of alluded to, I hear all the time from atheists of like, well, can God do X? And I'm like, I don't know. That has zero bearing on whether or not there is. It's the rational conclusion that God does exist. If that's the case, then is there a whole boatload of crap that in my current state of existence I wouldn't be able to understand? Yes, by default. If God created time, somebody getting major static on the back end?
Yeah, I hear it as well.
J-Mac, are you on your phone?
There we go.
Hey, StreamYard has does it after you stay on for a while. Why don't you exit or like click refresh, and I'll let you back in. It usually solves the problem of the audio problem.
All right.
But anyway, my point is, I'm sure you guys follow what I'm saying here. Like, if God created time, therefore I'm subject to time. Therefore, I'm not going to at this current state, I'm not going to understand an entity that is not bound by time. Like, that's, in my opinion, that's not a difficult concept to accept. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not things you can derive from it, but I have zero. To me, it's an extremely arrogant position to think that you could actually understand what that truly means until you've experienced it.
Yeah.
Other than from a conceptual perspective. And I don't know. And that's applies on so many different levels. That's why I get very irritated with like even theists sometimes too. Like they get on this whole like, well, when does God do X? And I'm like, God is not stuck inside of our timeline. Okay, like what are we arguing over right now?
It's like I've said before. Just to Rand, like we in conversations around. Okay, we call it a braai. You guys call it a cookout. Just sometimes the conversations pop up, and I always say like, think of a color that you've never seen before. You cannot think of that color. Like you only know what you've seen or what you can see. Okay, they say a dog can only see a few different colors. The old wives' tale of black and white is nonsense. They do see a few variations of colors, but also I cannot say for sure, but that's what I've read. Anyway, so think of a color that you've never seen before. There must be more colors. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I can see it.
But you cannot comprehend. You cannot think of that other color. So, like John was saying there, with the whole, if you cannot comprehend it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
Just one of the little arguments that I had.
In line with what you're talking about on the light, I mean, you got to think about this. Are there all sorts of other colors on the spectrum? Yes.
Yeah.
The only reason we don't perceive them is that we're not engineered to be able to perceive them. It's not that, I mean, we literally have filters, like
Yeah.
literal filters, both from the like actual input sensors filter them out, and then the processing, like the way it's rendered in our mind's eye, has filters. I mean, we know this, right? Like this is what's happening. It's not that they don't exist; it's that we're not rendering them. So to your point, and this is something I've contemplated in context of, for example, like people that have near-death experiences, right? Many of them talk about all these colors they can't describe because they don't exist in this stage of life, right? I saw all these colors. I can't describe them. It was the most beautiful thing. It was colors I hadn't seen before. And then they come, of course, when they're telling their stories, it's like, I can't tell you what they were like because we don't experience them, right? And it's not that they're not there; it's that we don't have the capacity to visualize them, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I think about that of if that is the case, and we are actually only glimpsing, we currently only have access to a minuscule sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yes.
I mean, it's so minuscule, like what we have access to. And then, but we have all these people claiming that we have like all this level of understanding of what is existence. Look, you lost your mind if you actually, the level of arrogance that's necessary to take that position, in my opinion, is just it's so astronomical. And the irony for me in terms of like the ID debate, like they claim like you act like you know stuff, and I'm like, you do realize the position I'm taking is that this minuscule sliver that I'm able to see is very, very indicative of an exponentially more complicated and more controlled and organized and designed structure that we keep pulling the curtain back a little bit as time goes by. But if what we're continuing to discover lends more and more credence to my position, why would I ever surrender my position?
Exactly.
Ever.
Yeah.
The evidence is growing in my favor, not against.
Oh.
Welcome back, T-Mac.
Yeah, sorry, I was doing a mic test. My bad.
No, you're good. Welcome back, man. Does that sound better for you?
Yeah, I switched to my computer because my phone was straight donkey cheeks.
Yeah, I run into it on my. It's something new. It started happening like a couple months ago. I don't know what StreamYard did. Like they did an update, and ever since then, usually like 10, 15 minutes in, my phone will start going haywire. Even if I can be connected to Wi-Fi, whatever, and I've got a high-end phone, and it's like
it literally died.
Oh, you ran out of battery?
Yeah, it ran out my battery.
Yeah, it's StreamYard, man. It sucks battery too. It's crazy.
But nah, I completely I could still hear what you were saying on the computer. Now, I completely agree, man. It's like honestly, I think in the grand scheme of things, and hey, if any hardcore atheists are listening, you might not hear what's about to be said, but I think they just don't want it to be true at the end of the day. Because it's like when your dad tells you to sweep the kitchen and you really don't want to sweep the kitchen, so he goes back in there and that shit's half-assed done. Because you ain't really want to do it. It's the same thing with God, you know what I'm saying? The people who can't seem to find God or find reasoning are the same people who can't seem to find a broom to sweep the kitchen they don't want to sweep. I mean, that's what I
can tell you a story. When people say, I'm the one that I've experienced God, and the people say that's your own personal experience or something like that. It could have been a dream. It could have been this. I can give a quick story of the way I got. Okay, I've always believed in it because in our country we have it in school. We still have it in school. We have Bible classes and things like that. So I was brought up to obviously believe it, and now with the way I believe and feel and blah 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 is yes, I believe we do have a God or creator, whatever you want to call him. And I'll give a quick story. Is my little Dachshund, little sausage dog. I proposed to my wife with my little sausage dog, and he was near and dear to my heart, and I loved him to bits. And he felt paralyzed, and they wanted to put him down. So I said no. Long story short, he was fine, and we had him another 4 years later. Then he had a stroke. Then he passed. But I actually completely skipped the story now. I was almost went straight to his death. So when he felt paralyzed the first time, and they said they want to put him down, I was like, no, you're not putting down my dog. And they said, then we had him at the vet for about 4 days, and eventually they said, no, he's getting worse, and he's never going to be able to walk. He can't pass bowel movements, etc., etc. And I was in tears, and I said, no, let's keep him a few days there, because he wasn't in any pain. I did ask, is he in any pain? And they said, no, he's not in any pain. And the 7th day, they gave me a call and said, listen, you can say goodbye. We're going to need to put him down. You know, this is really worthless. And that night when they phoned me to tell me this, we must say our goodbyes the next day, my wife and I, we went to sleep, of course. And when I woke up that morning, I'm not a morning person at all. I woke up at, I think it was 5:30 that morning, and I woke up crying, and I woke my wife up, and I said, today I'm hanging up your paintings. And she said to me, why? And we just bought a house, and we moved into the house, and she begged me to hang up paintings. I'm a lazy ass. And she's been begging now for the 2 years to hang up her paintings. And I said to her, in my dream, God said to me, you hang up those paintings and Biscuit will be fine. My dog's name was Biscuit. That's all he said. That's all I remember of my dream. That something told me, hang up Bianca's paintings and Biscuit will be fine. So I just woke up crying saying that. So on our way to the vet, my dog stood up, and he was wobbly and whatever, but he started getting feeling back in his legs. And the vet said, like, this is not possible. It's not possible from what he was to the time that we left the house to go say our goodbyes, that he all of a sudden got feeling in his legs, because I was told in my dreams, if I hang up Bianca's paintings, Biscuit will be fine. And I told my wife that, and look at that. That was for me like, wow, this is impossible. And I'm not making this shit up. You can go to the vet. I've got an extremely good relationship with this vet. I've never been to this vet either before. It was a 24-hour vet that I had him at, because I can go visit him anytime I could. And yeah, so that was, I probably butchered that a little bit, because I'm a little bit new and nervous to this whole conversation thing. I don't want to sound like stupid or mess up.
Like,
I'm rambling a bit, but yeah, that was a story in a nutshell.
But I got a question. Oh shit.
Go ahead, G-Mac.
Oh, okay. I got a question, Ian. Okay, so like, and I don't want to like get into this, but I was listening to what you were saying. Did you? And correct me if I'm wrong. Did you say you were like Muslim?
No. I've been brought up Christian.
Oh, brought up Christian. Okay, my bad.
But yeah, I'm not one of those happy clapper Christians. I don't go to church or anything like that. I just.
Nah, I guess I misheard you what you were saying. I thought my bad.
I just have an idea of what is out there.
Yeah,
that's we brought up that way. But I'm not a person that goes to church. To be honest, I hardly even read the Bible. I just got my personal relationship with him, and now and then I would watch a few videos and of the King James Bible verses and things like that. But nothing over the top. Just live as normal and the way I was brought up. So hopefully that makes sense.
And now we let the awkward silence sink in. No, but LBP, I had a question for you if you were here. You ever heard of this YouTuber called Genetically Modified Skeptic? Because I ain't gonna lie, like, I don't want to like spread no hate or nothing, but bro, like he's one of them YouTubers that I don't think he actually debates. He just kind of says a lot of blatantly wrong things as regards to like the whole Christian theology and whatnot, and just guiding you. Like he tries to get like he's like one of those pseudo intellectual type channels and whatnot. But yeah, like honestly, I think someone needs to sit him down, bro. But like he's kind of like wannabe Dave. He doesn't really he doesn't really pull up in debates, and if he does, I don't think he'll even pull up on anyone near or would be like a better, like higher skill level than he is. Because I've seen some of this guy's videos, and half of them is trash.
Yeah. Where's John at?
Probably went AFK. Well, I guess.
No, I'm back.
There he is. Did you get my question?
No, sorry, I'd stepped away for a second. I'm back though. What were you asking?
I was asking, have you ever heard of this internet atheist called genetically modified skeptic?
Oh yeah.
Bro. Yeah. Like does he debate? I've never seen any debates like that, like on his channel. Does he actually debate? Or
Not,
is he just one of the guys that sits behind
not that I'm aware of. I mean, that little man would get annihilated in a debate.
Like, I'm thinking now, right? But like, and I'm pretty sure I've seen people like actively call him out before, but he never pulls up. He'll just make a little video. Oh, look at these crazy Christians, and then just go on saying blatantly wrong things. Look, having objections to something is fine. You don't believe in Christian, that's fine. But don't be a wuss about it. Don't be that guy about it.
Here's the thing with him. With him, he's clearly a outcome of some kind of cultish religious experience, like Christian experience, quote unquote. Yeah. It's obvious. I mean, he talks about it all the time. Like there's a whole period where he went through like essential oils and stuff. Like he obviously was involved in the exact thing that people like me talk about, like why the quote unquote church, I'm talking from a modern perspective, is not in the vast majority of cases is not a good thing, right? It's not Christian, and the people's inability to separate between Christianity and denomination, and that they're not one and the same.
Honestly,
and that because like his most recent video, or one of his most recent videos, where he was talking about like, oh, well, they're following these like this psychological manipulation, and like you come out and you have this music playing, and then like somebody talks, and then like they say all these like buzzwords and repeat statements, and they play some more music and keep people all hyped up, and then like play to their emotions and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm not really sure how your description of like mega churches and how a lot of them are acting is somehow like the be all end all, like this is Christianity. Like there's all sorts of people that are Christians who are not in favor and actually publicly talk about like what the mega church has turned into as not being a good thing. So congratulations on making a video calling out the standard talking points of what a megachurch has most megachurches have turned into, and then somehow trying to paint this with a broad brush of this is Christianity. I mean, it's a joke.
Oh yeah, but yeah, for real though. Honestly, like I don't even know, because I used to like try to get like into like the whole debate and whatnot, but then like sometimes I would run into like these 14-year-old kids and whatnot, and like you know what I'm saying, they talking about things. Oh, they believe that hell is equal, and like no matter what I say, it's like they just don't. It's like the fact that there are little kids believing in this death philosophy, because that's what it is, and that's what it inspires, and that's what, if you live it out honestly, ultimately leads to. The fact that kids are being brainwashed by this honestly kind of makes my blood boil. All because we don't want to teach science in the science class. We want to teach a government paid religion in order to remove all accountability or idea of God's existence, because you want to control the masses through whatever fucking satanic scheme that you have. Because a lot of these guys, I don't want to get too deep on that rabbit hole, but I've been looking into Freemasonry, doing some real research in it, and once you get to like the 30th and like the higher degrees and whatnot, because you go into it thinking, no, it's just another religious, organization or whatever, believe in God or whatever. But the higher you go into Freemasonry, the more that you know. Like a 20th degree Freemasonry probably isn't going to know as much as a 21st degree. Like each level has like its own like layer of knowledge. It's like a pyramid. Once you get to the highest degrees, they teach it's basically Luciferianism. They say that Lucifer is the light bringer. You know, they say that he is God, and this is what like the 33rd degree, like the upper people like in the Freemason society, like believe in. This is what they teach. They worship the Baphomet, this freak with breast and a penis and a goat head, like. And a lot of people, like a lot of these top people, are 33rd degree Freemasons. And of course, it's a secret society. So a lot of what they might officially tell you, of course, is going to be a lie. And of course, they're going to deny any type of knowledge. But, of course, spilling that kind of knowledge pretty much warrants a death sentence because you take an oath of secrecy if you ever say anything like that. But yeah, a lot of these, I feel like a lot of the reason why the world is the way it is today is because we have people believing we're in video games and people believing that Satan is God and people messing with history. And I mean, shoot, if you look into Agenda 2030, when like the Gates Foundation, like all these big companies are, pretty much getting together and they're essentially trying to have the entire world connected. You know what I'm saying? Through this like one world thing. They're essentially trying to merge. Like they're really trying to do this. They're trying to merge consciousness with machine. They call it humanity 2.0. They think it's our next step in evolution. They believe that mankind is going to be immortal through the use of technology. And honestly,
ultimately, that those objectives are. I mean, it's an attempt to assign deity to the elite. I mean, it's what it ultimately boils down to. I mean, and the irony for me is a lot of that stuff. It's that people talk about like, oh, if you discuss this sort of thing, you're just believing in like secret societies and propaganda and all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, so it's public knowledge. Like they publish papers on this. Like they have NGOs and all these organizations with the stated, like with mission statements to this end, and billions of dollars are being invested in the technology to have the potential, potentially to accomplish these objectives. And it's like, it's not conspiracy theory when it's being publicly stated as the objective. Like, I don't know what universe you're living in when that's exactly what's being.
They just hate it when we're right. It's okay.
Yeah. There's fun stuff.
TJ, did you watch that video with that Australian Fear Factor winner that spoke about the Freemasons and that? It's about a 5.5 hour long video.
Is it on YouTube? I don't think I've seen that one.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah, you got
pretty
my
interesting.
email?
But it's you sent that earlier on. Yeah, it's long, so if watch it in bits if you don't have the time. And he does ramble about the same thing over and over and over, but very, very interesting to watch. He was an X Factor winner that spoke a bit.
And a lot of times you're not allowed to speak on those kind of things, especially because like the way the world's sort of going now. Because here's the thing, here's what I'm predicting, and of course I feel like that kind of lines up with prophecy. We're gonna see a boom in like religion and Christianity and whatnot. Like I think evolution is gonna die out before Christianity does. Honestly, I think we're gonna keep seeing an increase in this because eventually it's gonna slip. Eventually, what these mad lads are gonna doing or they're doing, it's gonna slip. And it's something they don't want people to know. People are gonna know, and when people start making these basically people who don't want to conform to this beast system they're setting up for. And I do believe the vaccine, I'm not necessarily saying that it is, but I think it's a precursor to whatever they're, is trying to get going on. But I'm not going to open that can of worms. All I'm saying is it's going to be a chain of events that eventually leads to, okay, you guys believe, in the risen Lord and whatnot. You Christians, real Christians who don't want to conform to this, you believe in this all-powerful God. They're going to do us like the corrupted Crusaders did. Well, we're better off without them. Let's send them to their God. And eventually it's going to get so bad to the point, where they'll just believe that Christians are just the inferior, a necessary part of society. Because the demoralization of society is already at critical levels. Like, eventually it'll get to the point where they'll start murdering Christians as they kill their children, and they won't even see anything wrong with it. So yeah, it's like I just think it's going to lead into a chain of events as to where I'm not claiming to know the man of the hour. I'd be a fool too, but I think the tribulation times are coming sooner than later. I don't know when, but I think it's coming quite soon.
But that's what I
Because
said. Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. Remember that in our country, it's growing in the sense of creation, or creator versus evolution. Where you guys are going, I don't know how you guys are actually going, but as far as I understand, it's also sort of falling away. But yeah, we definitely growing in the belief of a creator versus
the
evolution.
blunt reality
Yeah,
is that the blunt reality is the only thing that's preventing a lot of those things you're talking about from occurring is the United States. Like,
yeah.
The second the U.S. falls, the cascade to enable the globalization, all that kind of stuff, it happens almost by default. Because, I mean, let's just be real. The United States falls. China is going to conquer Asia. The EU will do what they've been attempting to pull off for quite some time now, which is to turn the EU into like a country rather than a economic organization.
Yeah.
And the structure for Canada and Mexico and the United States to merge has already been outlined. And I don't know what happened to South America exactly, but at that point right there, you basically got the world.
One world government.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that much of an outlier to think about this. I mean, and especially the part that has me more intrigued in relation to the execution of it is with what's going on with the cryptocurrencies. And like, there's active moves to remove the dollar from the petrodollar, right? And the reserve currency. The second that happens, the U.S. collapses, like guaranteed.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen.
I mean, we're on the edge of hyperinflation right now, and we've got politicians doubling and tripling down on spending. And I'm just like, you people are like, well, here's the thing: they're not idiots. Their objective is to collapse the only barrier to globalization, and they just have to time it. And the irony is that the globalists miscalculated with Obama. They were too aggressive during the Obama presidency and enabled Trump's victory. And otherwise, like, and couple that with the fact that Hillary was a joke and also so arrogant, she thinks she actually had to campaign. But if they hadn't been so aggressive in between 2008 and 2016, she would have won, and then they would have had no barriers to the end outcome objective.
So Trump was that last barrier, basically.
Trump gets in. It's a temporary timeout on their objective, and then obviously in 2020 they went all in. But and now it's a timing game of like, can they pull it all off?
And Biden is another one of their puppets, of course.
Well, let's just be honest. Biden is an idiot, and well, he might not even be an idiot. He's a vegetable at this point.
Yeah, it's
the dementia's in full swing.
Did you see him climbing the stairs to the airplane?
I was talking a couple weeks ago when he like fell 3 times.
Yeah.
He reminds me of our ex-president Jacob Zuma with his numbers.
You cannot tell me Biden's not being shadow controlled, bro. You can't tell me that nigga don't have a handler. I'm sorry.
Well, no, of course he do. He's a puppet. Like, that's why he won. He's the ultimate puppet. He's literally demented. I mean, what better puppet is there than somebody who has full-scale dementia? Like, that's the epitome of the puppet, right? Like,
yep.
I mean, they literally direct him. Like, no, Joe, this way, go this, no, turn left, Joe, turn left. I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad.
And that's why the media loves him so much. Because here's the thing. The reason why they berated Trump is because Trump was not a part of their objective. I feel like he damn near got taken out a few times in his presidency, but I'm not going to talk about that. But Trump was not a part of their objective. And the reason why they're pushing him and trying to brainwash everybody to love Biden, that's why I really don't watch TV like that.
Nobody.
And the reason why they're trying to brainwash Biden.
Nobody loves Biden. It's
wild out here, man.
All I gotta say is so Biden's first press conference after they like, I forgot how long it'd been a long time before he had his first press conference, and there was so much pressure. Finally, they're going to do it. The dude, I was watching him, and he was talking about infrastructure, and he was talking about roads and all this kind of stuff. And then out of nowhere, like mid sentence, he switched over to gun control. I'm like, in mid sentence, switch topics, and I'm like, hang on. I'm for a second there. I'm like, did I just miss something? Did I like zone out for a minute? And there was like another question. So I'm like, I hit rewind, right? And nope, just dead center mid sentence, like shift. Like, what just happened? Anyway, the point at the end when he's like, oh, I could take a few more questions, and his handlers like swooped in and were like, no, Mr. President, and then like basically dragged him off stage.
Like, because he was talking too much.
Yeah, we're talking. Well, they ran out. I mean, it came out later that they had the entire thing scripted, and he was at the end of the script and just didn't realize it. That's why they drug him off, because all of the questions were outlined, and they had diagrammed like he was they were so dumb they didn't realize that they left his little chart on the table and they got it on camera, and it's like they had literally mapped out the whole room for him, and the questions were already written down on his. Like the questions that were going to be asked were already written down on the stuff that Biden had on the podium.
It's all one big script, man.
If that's not the literal epitome of a script, I don't know what is.
It's all scripted. Like, and people still don't see this. People still don't wake up to this. Wait, people be seeing misunderstanding, of course, because they're brainwashed the media. They think, oh, waking up means you're going a weird conspiracy. Waking up is just using your brain, bruh. Waking up is just using your eyes to see, your ears to hear, and that beautiful God-given brain to think. That's it. Well, critical thinking is waking up.
The problem
if you know how to think, congratulations, you're woke.
Yeah, but you got to think about this. If you actually do execute those things you're just referring to, then you're forced to come to conclusions based on the evidence that's presented or available to you. And the second you have those realizations, then you're faced with two choices. Either A, do I just accept this and then try to, turn it off, ignore it, act like it didn't happen, forget about it, tell myself there's nothing I can do, therefore I'm just not even going to think about it? Or do you take action? And so many people are cowards and they don't want to even think about it. They only want to contemplate it. Even if you're not going to necessarily take action, are you going to prepare for the inevitable outcomes and all that kind of stuff? And I'm in no way, shape, form, or fashion one of those like hardcore preppers at all. But at the same time, I'm also recognizing that there are, in every case of history, when you reach certain points, a civilization reaches different points. There is inevitable. There's inevitable outcomes of, the proverbial tipping point of collapse. And if anybody thinks that when the United States eventually collapses, it won't be the most epic fall in the history of mankind, you're an uninformed idiot. I mean, at this point, when the unfunded liabilities of the United States are like potentially $230 trillion of unfunded liabilities, like just to contemplate that, which we can't. Humans don't have the capacity to actually truly comprehend a number that big. But when the GDP of the planet is like 84 trillion, and the United States has unfunded liabilities in the 230 trillion range.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
That's the GDP of the planet?
Yeah. Well,
in the United States, damn.
So, okay, and you got to put this in context too. So, like the GDP of the U.S., I think is like 20. Let's see, GDP United States, I think it was like 21. I think.
We're going down harder than Rome.
Yeah. Okay, so our GDP in 2020 was 20.93 trillion. So basically 21 trillion, right? So the GDP of the planet was pretty close. It was 84 trillion. I was actually right. Huh? It was 84 in 2020. So let's think about this. So our GDP is 21 trillion. The rest of the planet's 84 put together. Every other country on the planet put together is 84. United States 21. Rest of the planet put together 84. Okay. Unfunded liabilities in the United States. Or actually, our current debt is 29. We tipped 20 trillion. I forget. If we hit the 20, no, it's not 26, folks. We're way above that. Let's see. National debt, real time. We are at. All right, come on, load. We're at 28 trillion.
Oh wow.
That's just that's our debt, right? Then you have the unfunded liabilities, which are in the 200. There's different ranges. They range from like 160 to 220 or 230 trillion, depending on which report you look at. Either way, our unfunded liabilities are dramatically greater than the entire GDP of the planet. So, which is why I say when the inevitable collapse of the United States kicks in, the rest of the world is toast. And,
Oh yeah.
Which is why right now the central banks are all being so aggressive in trying to, perpetuate the bubble, if you will. But inflation is finally catching up with us because we've been doing quantitative easing since 2009, just printing money at the wazoo. I remember there for a while. We did like $3 trillion in quantitative easing in 1 quarter. I remember reading about stuff and just being like, we're so screwed.
I think South Africa's 3 trillion rand in debt. I don't know what the equivalent to dollars is. I can Google that. But yeah, I think 3 trillion rand in debt.
So you think that's when the Antichrist will show up? Like when this collapse happens?
Oh man, you guys are good. You're only 219 billion in debt. You're good.
Okay. No, but it's a lot for us.
Well, it's a lot for
country
comparatively, right, to your GDP. It's a big deal, but
it's not 4 times the debt of the whole world, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we're in. That's why I say, like, right now, the central banks can't let the United States collapse because everybody on the planet would be toast at this point, right? Like everything's too unstable. You have like guaranteed war, starvation. I mean, it's just nuts. So they can't do it yet. But
I think every 100 years they do some reset. Like what the Spanish flu was in 1920. The Spanish flu, everyone wore masks, blah blah blah. And now 2020, we had this thingy, and then I think 1820 they had something else. I also, like I say, I forget all these damn things, but I've got it written down somewhere. But yeah, every 100 years has been this pattern of this great reset.
Oh yeah, you got to show me them. Show me that because I want.
Yeah.
Look real quick. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things I find extraordinarily fascinating about the so like debt to GDP rate, debt to GDP ratios are especially with fiat currencies are usually, I mean, just spot on where you are in relation to the inevitable currency collapse. And what's nuts is the Congressional Budget Office and all the reports are like made public and talked about on TV and such. Okay, so they calculate the debt to GDP ratio of the United States only on the domestically held debt. They do not factor in the foreign held debt, which it just blows me away every time I think about this. Okay, so for example purposes, let's say that I owe Sal $100 and I owe Ian $20, right? They're only factoring in the $100 I owe to Sal and not the $20 I owe to Ian because he's in South Africa and Sal's in the United States. It's like, what? So for case in point, I think Japan owns like 1 trillion. Let's see. U.S. debt does Japan have? I think they hold like 1 trillion. Let's see. Yeah, Japan holds basically $1.25 trillion of U.S. debt. Right. The Congressional Budget Office does not factor in the $1.25 trillion that Japan holds into our debt to GDP ratio. It's like Yeah,
it's crazy.
we're gonna make all these decisions and just ignore this whole little chunk of money that we owe, right? So anyway, I'm going with this in terms of like fiat currencies. Usually, when you get to a 150% debt to GDP ratio, like the collapse of the currency is almost guaranteed, right? Or actually, not almost. Historically, they've always collapsed, right? How long it's taken has varied, but there's always been collapse. So we hear all this crap from the CBO that like the U.S. debt to GDP ratio is only like 126%, 131%, all this kind of stuff, right? If you factor in the foreign held debt, we're at like 140 something. I forget the exact number. So we're like right on the edge of the point where currencies collapse historically without fail. But we're being told, oh no, it's all good. We're only, we're not actually that close. I mean, we're getting closer, but we're not that close to that tipping point when we're like literally on the edge of the anyway. It pisses me off like the level of like propaganda and just removal of like we're just going to change the math for everybody and make people feel better about themselves that we're not on a going 1,000 miles an hour into the most epic collapse in the history of the world,
And it'll be the last collapse. What's up?
Yeah, I sent you in the private chat.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, that is true. 1720 the plague, 1820
Cholera.
and it's like, so does that mean that these the ones that worship the evil one, does that mean that they've been in control for like several centuries now? Because like technically this Illuminati whatnot, like they say it was disbanded. Man, these people have been in control for centuries, and the fact that every 100 years we've had a major like this ain't no coinky dink. Like after I really got into these, like it's prophecy, bro. That's all it really is. I ain't tripping too much. You know what I'm saying?
And out of all the presidents of the USA, I think just one does not have a bloodline to one king. Back in the day, there's some research that you can do on that as well. It's very interesting. There's a lot of deep rabbit holes that you can go into. But yeah, I think it's every president
down some of
except
them.
one is they all got a bloodline to one king from many hundreds of years ago.
Speaking of bloodlines, like the Hebrews and whatnot. So apparently, I've been looking into it and whatnot. Apparently, like there's a good majority of like the African Americans like over here that actually trace back to the Hebrew bloodlines. It's actually a good chunk of them. So it's like not all of them, but it's a considerable amount. I'm gonna do a little blood test of mine, see if I got. Of course, it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. Salvation is, what I'm saying, what is written to be. But that's kind of cool to think about because it is stated in scriptures like there will be, they will be scattered amongst lands, like not in like Israel and whatnot. And it's like, you know what I'm saying, like slavery was as far as like that history, like that does kind of make sense because we everywhere, like as far as that's concerned, not just in America, like people tracing back to that old Hebrew lineage, we're across the world pretty much. So it's like it's I don't know, I think it's kind of interesting to think about, like, but they don't talk about it because a lot of major history does tie back to like some biblical stuff, like what happened with Moses and whatnot. Like, if you really take that into context, that would be something worth talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, but of course, it's like what LPP said. Like, they don't want this because they're trying to erase the idea of God entirely. And there used to be a time when, well, I guess maybe that might not be entirely true, but I would say for a good part, there was a time when we at least, I guess you might want to say attempted to, be like a God-fearing country. But now here we are falling into sin. We're doing the same thing the Canaanites and the Baal worshippers did, the same thing the Babylonians did. We sacrifice our children on the altars of our own egos and our own narcissists. Like, we are such a spoiled country. We honestly deserve it because there are Christians all over the world literally getting murked. People in like Muslim states, Chinese Christians over there getting all types of horrors done to them in those camps, like, and all types of like just there's Christians actually out here suffering, And here the Americans are just sitting on our iPhones, watching Netflix, calling ourselves so-called Christians. But when the moment stuff hits the fan, we go demon time or they go demon time real quick. So it's like the way I see it, this country had it coming like a freight train, because even the very foundations of this country, we murdered a lot of people to build this place. There is much blood in the name of this country. There is much sin that needs answering for. And what is about to happen is completely what we deserve. You look at it on that perspective.
Yeah.
What you're saying. And we all know what God does with countries that fall into sin and refuse to kneel down and repent and cleanse themselves of their ways and trust unto Him. Those countries tend not to do too well after a while, because people think the Father really sleep. People think He ain't in control. That's crazy. That's how I know they really don't get the gist of Christianity, because the whole idea is the risen Lord, is risen. He lives. Everyone else is dead. Muhammad is dead. But the Buddha, the Hinduism, all that other stuff, it just leads to a dead end. I'd have looked into it. If you really take it into the context of the narrative, the only living option is Christ at the end of the day. And the way I'm seeing stuff fold out, all I can really boil down to is, man, what is being said is happening. So with the evidence that's being presented to me, not just scientifically or intellectually, but spiritually and just reasoning based on what I see, based on what I'm hearing, based on, you can just see it, like what's going on in the world and the nature of God, because that's ultimately just what sin and evil is. It is against the nature of God. That's all I see, and I see that across the world, not just America. I look at the world, I'm like, damn, everybody need a spanking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, all I can go, man, is like, LPP, I really appreciate what you do. I know some people are listening to you, they're reconsidering, because people come to Christ in different ways. It was more of like a philosophical-ish intellectual awakening for me, or at least, how, as far as I'd come, some people, come to Christ through music, there's, or art, the different thing, like really, like people come to Christ through many different ways. And as long as, what you're doing is, glorifying the Lord and, helping some people who will listen. You know what I'm saying? Because, there are, hundreds, thousands of people watch your channel. Somebody out there getting saved. So I just want to say I appreciate what you're doing, man. Like, anything helps, because eventually the time for mercy, it ain't going to be here too long. I'm young and I see this. People talking about Generation Z. We are screwed. Generation Z ain't doing nothing for y'all. You heard me? Generation Z ain't got nothing to do for y'all. We stupid out here. We young. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but us young American kids, we stupid out here, bro. We straight stupid. So it's like, hey,
Yeah,
why is it called Generation
getting,
Z? What's after Z? I'm
yeah,
just saying, like,
it's getting bad overall. We're all.
I appreciate what you're doing, man.
No, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, it's getting bizarre, man. There's a lot of weird stuff happening, and the writing is pretty much on the wall at this point. Like I get very entertained by all these folks I listen to talking about how, like, oh no, everything's gonna be better. We're on the edge of solving all the problems. I'm like, no. Actually, we're on the edge of the chickens coming home to roost from all the stupidity that's been going on, and the fact that we're idiots.
Yeah.
And I don't use that word lightly. I mean, not only are we getting dumber, I mean, it's actually being quantified that we're getting dumber.
Yeah.
That's a fact, which I
We're
find
doing stupid stuff.
which I find very entertaining, just from an IQ perspective. Like, we are getting dumber, but the lack of, you kind of touched on this earlier, the lack of critical thinking skills, basic analysis, and the ability to, as we were talking about earlier with like software, right, of being able to create your own solution versus being told what the solution is. And it's like, if you can't create your own answers, you're going to have a serious problem in life. But the problem is that across the globe, people are being conditioned to not, well, somebody else is going to solve that. Well, somebody else is going to solve that. That's not my thing. I don't do that. I don't have to solve that. Somebody else does that.
Yeah, it's bad.
And it's like, well, hey, no. A lot of this stuff, there isn't somebody else because they're saying the same thing that you're saying right now. Oh, there's somebody else for that. And when you face the inevitable in the context of, like, what we're talking about a minute ago of like hyperinflation and currency collapse, like, okay, like, this isn't that long ago. This happens around the world, right? I mean, there's countries in Africa it's happening. I mean, you go back to the Weimar Republic, Germany, when you had to take a freaking wheelbarrow of paper money to go buy a loaf of bread. I mean, oh yeah, it's like 4 billion marks for a loaf of bread. I mean, think about that. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna print billion-dollar notes.
We ain't finna do nothing.
So you can go to the grocery store, man. Like, come on, dude. It's like we can't comprehend that.
Bro, have you heard about CERN?
Oh yeah.
Like, these mad lads are really trying to do some mad scientist stuff. They are building 17-mile particle colliders. They want to figure out what the universe is made of. They want to break open the veil. It's all scientific, but why do they?
Did you watch the ceremony?
Bro, I was just about to say that. Why do they have the Shiva statue there and they're doing the dance of destruction? I thought half of these guys are atheists. Something's not right here. Something, and then there's like a video of like this supposed mock ritual at the CERN, and you know what I'm saying? And all these crazy conspiracy theorists saying that Satanists and these occultists rule the world. Bruh, why is there a Shiva statue in the science lab? And it's like, they really think I'm crazy. They think we crazy out here, man. Like,
well, the thing I find interesting about that, and Sal, if you got anything you want to say, we're gonna wrap up. I gotta get up in a couple hours.
Yeah.
The one of the things I find interesting about all that is one of the stated objectives is to open the doorway to other dimensions, right? And the fact that it's, I believe, if I remember correctly, yes, there's the Shiva statue, but if I remember correctly, the headquarters is actually built on a temple, the ruins of a temple to Belteshazzar, maybe, I forget which.
No, they say that's the Hell's entrance. So they built it on Hell's entrance or something.
Yeah, some.
No, I'm saying it was a temple to one of the gods that was supposed to control. I forget the name. It was like Belteshazzar. So I forget. Anyway, one of the things I've always found very fascinating about that, and I usually try to control myself on those kinds of topics and whatnot. I'm not thinking about it too much, but one of the things that's really struck me about that is one of the aspects of Revelation is that the doorway is opened and different things are able to come through, right? And there's like different plagues and demonic activity and stuff are able to come through. They're bound, and then the door is opened. And I'm like, okay, so we've got CERN, who's built their headquarters on top of a temple.
Yep.
To the god that's supposed to be the one that gets released. And their stated objective is to rip a hole in the universe into another dimension and see what's on the other side. Like, well, that's not coincidental in the slightest.
No.
And here's the other aspect of that for me that I find interesting is, like, I very often, like, the quote unquote religious world, it's all, it's spiritual, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, that sounds great. I don't doubt for a second that A, there could be more dimensions that we don't currently experience, and B, that the angels, demons, etc., aren't being able to operate interdimensionally, and some of them are being prevented from doing whatever they want to do in our dimensions, in the dimensions in which we inhabit. And like, to me, that's not a giant leap to come to that conclusion. But
I mean, God even said that he blocked off, like he did that for a reason. Like, there's a reason why some of these fallen angels and demons and whatnot aren't supposed to, like, be able to get into our reality. And these people, like I said, let's just be real. Satanists rule the world. Let's just go ahead and put that on the table right now. These Satanists who rule the world are trying to open a portal to who they believe to be their God. That's ultimate Revelation. Basically, if you put it all together, like, it basically says that humanity's gonna pull the trigger on what'll be their ultimate. You know what I'm saying? Like, That's the whole reason why we're being saved in the first place, or why God did what he did through Christ. Because it's like, we're going to need it, because the stuff we doing right here, like, if they thought if these atheists thought the flood of Noah was bad, if they thought that was a big mean thing God did, you don't want to be here for the wrath. You better get your minds right. If anyone out here young like me listening, hey, get up out them illusions, bro. Get your mind right, because you thought Noah's bad, man. The wrath gonna have you thinking real different. You do not want to be here for that. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, so look, guys, wrap it up. Everybody do last words. So, let's see, Ian, you wanna go first?
I just want to say thanks for letting me hop on and chat to you guys. Like I said, it's my first time ever just chatting to you guys like this. Never done something like this before.
No, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good first experience, and welcome to come back anytime.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, John. Sure. It's nice seeing you again, John. And good job on the debate with Mr. Onesie.
I appreciate that. Hey, so sidebar. One of the things I looked up while we've been talking, I went to that whole Library of Babel thing he was like relying on, and irony of ironies, the little search function he was using only allows for lowercase letters, space, comma, and period. So it has literal search parameter restrictions, and he was claiming it's the answer to improbability. it's like, dude, you don't even understand the whole necessity of a search algorithm and the syntax restrictions and the logic rules. Like, you don't even get this, but claiming that solves, like, none of that existed, bro. None of that existed in the context of what you're arguing, and you're claiming that this thing that's created by an intelligent agent debunks the whole point being made. The irony.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that debate later. I gotta go.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
fetch some stock, and I gotta get a shipment out, and then I'm gonna watch that debate a little bit later.
Right. Well, have a great night, everybody. So, you got anything in last words? No, you got a show you're doing tomorrow night, right? So you're on mute.
Yeah, it's just a variety show. I'm gonna just invite people. If you want to come on, John, that'd be great. If you're busy, I understand. I totally understand that. So we're gonna talk, not so much science, just a variety of topics like literature or something. Because it kind of helps me to just hang out with people. So
no, awesome. That sounds good. I will attempt to come in there for sure. And
okay, before we put you on the invitation list, and I don't know how you're not able to. I don't know how you can function on so little sleep, John. It's amazing. I wish I could be that way.
Well, I may take a nap tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, Jamie, looks like Jamie joined us. What's up, man? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Oh,
you were pretty
ready to wrap up here.
Killing it as usual.
Oh, did you watch the debate?
Yeah, a good portion of it. I came in late, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been moving too, huh?
Yeah, we're
get that done.
Almost. Tuesday night, the end of the road of my house. So
how far away?
What do you mean?
How far did you have to move? Are you moving to? I mean, from where you were?
Oh no. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is, assuming I get the stupid thing completed, for probably this summer, maybe for a couple months after that, I'm not sure. I will be residing in the box truck conversion that I'm building right now.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yep. So I'm going from living in a nice house in a good area of town here in Nashville, and then I'm gonna go goof off in a 1989 G3500 Vandura that I'm converting from box truck into RV.
That is awesome, dude. I'd love to do that.
It's cracking me out. I was joking with a friend of mine. I was like, dude, I currently live in a 4-bedroom house by myself. And come Tuesday night, I will be residing in a 16-foot box truck. This should be entertaining.
So do you set up a studio in it?
I'm going to. Yeah. Well, see, we're like finishing the build out, and the guy's been helping me work. I was telling these guys earlier, like the guy's been helping me build it. He freaking vanished. We should have finished it on Monday, and he vanished. And he's not answering his phone. I'm getting worried about it now. He's like, he's not answering his phone, not responding to text. I'm like, dude, where are you at? And we're now down to like the final, couple of the final pieces where it's like a 2-man job. And I'm just like, well, tomorrow actually, that's one of the things on my agenda I got to figure out. Either he answers his phone, and we figure this out and like get it built out the rest of the weekend, or I'm just going to hire somebody to come help me, because it's like, dude, I have to move out of my house Tuesday night
Because you got buyers.
Yeah, and it's like I gotta go. So I mean, I won't be like worst case scenario. I'm not gonna like if it's not done, it's not the end of the world. But I won't be homeless or anything. But it would be nice to have like a seamless transition, you know?
Yeah, right. So you're gonna travel around a little bit in that thing?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm considering doing is I'm actually doing like a little fundraiser for this. The one thing I want to do this on, I want to add a pretty good sized lift gate on the back of it, and that way I could like go on a little road trip, put down the lift gate, and like basically set it up as like a little kind of like a, you know how like Steven Crowder does his change my mind deal.
Oh, there you go.
Basically do
Awesome.
a very similar concept, but doing it on the back of like a lift gate in the back of the truck.
So how big is the box?
It's a 16-foot box.
Oh, not bad. That's not bad. Does it have like a raised part in the front, kind of like a?
Yeah, it has an attic and all that.
Cool. Put your bed up there, maybe, or is it too small?
Oh no, the bed's going up there. No, I'll basically have the bed's basically gonna be this like a full size. So
sick. You gonna have partitions and stuff too, or is it gonna be open floor? Probably, right?
So initially open floor. I may do some more stuff with it, but it's just gonna be me. So like I don't care. We built out a back wall. I just got to hang the stupid door on that. But I basically have a 2-foot inset back wall. So that basically got like a storage area in the back. I got the generator and AC exhaust ports and all that kind of stuff. And I kept the roll door. So you can like the roll door can be down. Like I'll put it this way, this thing will look exactly like any other box truck out there. You will not know that like this is an RV. And
sweet. So it's like you got to use probably from like a.
What'd you say?
Sorry, it's really quiet. I got to turn the volume up. I said, did you get it from like a truck rental place maybe or something?
Yeah,
get a good deal.
I think it used to be like originally it was some deal, but yeah, I bought it from this dude up in Indiana. I met him on the Kentucky-Tennessee border, and I had a box truck and bought the stupid thing. Drove back to Nashville. It's old. It's 30 years old. Did
you redo the motor or anything, or you worried about that at all?
I just swapped out all the U joints and the carrier bearing, and
that's good.
Got a new starter, new battery. I'm thinking I may have to get a new torque converter.
Mm-hmm. It's probably got a big old automatic T400 or something. Is it what's in there? Chevy or something?
It's a GMC. It's a 5.7 V8.
Oh, okay. So it's not the worst gas mileage. It's not. It's that's a pretty big V8, but it's not the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need it to be like doing any kind of heavy load tow or anything like that. So it's just but we'll see what happens. Yeah, should be. But like I said, if I can get this, I really want to get the lift gate on the back because that'd be hilarious, man. Can you imagine like swinging up somewhere in a university, like put up signage?
Oh yeah, perfect.
And then do a basically the equivalent of a change my mind, but like do it in the context of like atheism, theism, evolution versus ID, that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
number one, I think it'd be very entertaining, and I'd have so much fun doing it. But moreover, the challenging college kids in that context, I think would be very worthwhile.
Yeah, you didn't try to put a bathroom in there, did you, or did you?
No, not yet. I mean, not yet. I've got a porta toilet on order. It should be arriving this weekend, and then I'm debating right now on if I want to actually install like full scale sink and all that stuff, or I found these like sink toilet combos, like the water tanks, everything that comes a combo, and they're like $200. I'm like, man, I may just go that route.
Yeah, that might be worth it. It's just the problem is like you just have to decide what you're going to do with it, because unless you're traveling on the road, you probably don't want to take up the space or something, you know. It depends on, but you know, it's nice to have that when if you're sleeping in there and stuff and traveling.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's I mean, at a minimum of the toilet. But here's the other thing with my like little garage portion in the back. I can worst case scenario, I can also just like stick the toilet in the back if I want to, like separate from my.
Hey, what's up, guys?
My
I
living
don't
room.
want to interrupt your toilet talk, but hey, you guys saw the news today, man, or yesterday? I don't know, but apparently Fauci's emails got leaked or something, and turns out that he's behind creating the whole coronavirus. And what else? What else is new? Oh yeah, it was on Fox News. Tucker Carlson. What's up, Sal? Jamie Russell. Oh, goodbye, Sal. And LPP.
Yeah. I also got to run, guys. But yeah.
Man.
Yeah, no, sorry, man.
Great
I got
meeting.
shit to do.
Yeah,
you too.
we were actually closing out when you guys came in.
Yeah. Okay, but
we were literally doing last words.
That's right.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Great
Cheers.
talking with you, mate. Nice to meet you.
You too. Bye.
Peace.
See you, Eager. Iger.
but yes, we are wrapping up. I got to pass out. So, and yes, Iger, I have been watching some of that stuff, and it's going to be epic. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that he will go not quietly into that good night and be taken care of. But
oh my God, are you guys serious?
They literally made this damn virus just to create more control and lead us closer to a one world government, one world currency, one world religion.
That can't be right, dude. Come on. Fauci was not even a part of it until after the pandemic.
Say it again.
I said Fauci was hired after the pandemic hit. So how would he get that position if he had started? Are you saying they're all in cahoots?
It's all out there, bro. I'll put a link to
John, tell me this guy's joking.
hang on. Hang on. What are you saying Fauci got hired for, Jamie?
Didn't he get hired after the pandemic got started or no?
No, dude. He's been.
I don't remember. I was
Fauci has worked for the government for literally 50 years.
Well, not only that, he's
been the head of the allergy and infectious disease whatever for like 30 years.
So you guys saying you think so? You think he did for real?
Bro, I'm gonna put a link.
What's the news saying?
Have you not read his emails?
Well, it just came out today, but
no, I haven't heard.
Oh yeah, so like all the stuff on the yes, he was authorizing the funding of the lab in China. Yes, there were but I'll put you this way. I'm not gonna get all the details because we're on YouTube. I'll put you this way: the dude committed perjury in Congress on many occasions per his own emails.
Yeah, and no doubt, huh? So that it's all come out.
I mean, like direct contradictions. Oh yeah. I mean, even today, even the White House was like trying to separate. Oh, dude, his book got canceled.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, dude. This is like okay. So there was like a major Freedom of Information Act request that finally got released, right? And like all of his emails got dumped over to the organization that made the FOIA request, and then it's just like a never-ending supply of like wow.
Do you think he has a? Can he claim the government was telling him what to say or whatever? Can he get out of it that way? Kind of thing?
What the Chinese government was telling him what to say when he he pivoted his talking points to match up directly with the talking points of the Chinese government. Well, he definitely did that.
No, I just thought maybe the government's directing him to say certain things. Could be true. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm just hypothetical.
He pivoted so many times, man. It's like, okay, let's think about this.
Hey, I don't know if you could post a link
February
on the
in February of last year,
because I'm not a mod, but I put on the private chat.
It was either end of January or beginning of February last year. he's on camera talking about how masks were a bad idea. And then 2 months later, it was the best idea of all time, and anybody who said otherwise was just wrong.
Yeah, I got blocked for that one.
It's like, dude, you're on camera literally saying the exact opposite. Like,
I do hear that.
I remember that. Yeah,
yesterday.
right.
At least you could talk on like about the virus not being not coming from a bat. Now you can talk about that. It's not going to get deleted no more, from what I understand. But it's crazy, the censorship, anyways. But now it's coming all out. So
yeah, there's so many different aspects to it. I mean, all the stuff that's happening. I mean, anyway, very long story trying to get into details.
Yeah.
Let's just say that Fauci he's toast. He's now politically toast.
But it also ties him to Bill Gates, bro. Like if you watch this 10-minute clip from Tucker Carlson today, that's on Fox News. I just put a link on the private chat. If you could copy it on the live chat, if anybody else wants to watch it, I can't put links on this channel. But yeah, man, this is crazy. It's crazy, bro. And it ties it all together where, you know, they planned this all out, bro. It was a pandemic all along. Anyways, carry on, friends. I just wanted to come in and say that real quick. Thanks for letting me vent, LPP.
No problem, man. Okay, I am going to bed now. It is time for me to go to sleep. I must pass out. So, gentlemen, appreciate you.
Did you find my OSauce?
Did I find your what?
My OSauce. I was looking for it. I'm looking for my salvation. I thought maybe you saw it.
Okay, so since you bring that bovine scatology up, I forget. Were you involved? Were you involved? I'm tired.
Yes, I do. I was. Yeah.
Did you come in when I was on there? Did you come in?
Yeah, you were zesty. Yeah, when we were talking about it, standings thing. Towards the end, I came in, I think.
Okay, the end. Okay, so did you hear my opening statement?
Oh yeah, I thought it was good. I agreed with pretty much all of it too. That's the thing.
Okay.
Maybe I need to rewatch it. Then maybe I missed something part of it, but I was in there listening. Yeah, most of what it was saying, I agree with. I think. So I don't know what about it.
Well, what was getting to me was the majority of the people on the other side of the equation. I mean, I'm talking within the first 2 minutes after I got done, were directly either claiming I didn't address, different points, or were making assertions that directly contradicted what I had just outlined, and then said that I didn't address them, like these different points.
Yeah,
and I'm like, either you guys weren't paying attention or you didn't comprehend what I just said.
You went through a lot. That's the thing, pretty quickly too. So I do remember most of it. I just remember thinking, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, and I should have made better notes. I was kind of nervous for some reason. I don't know why, because I was going to go right after you. Remember, and I don't affirm OSAS in the strict sense, but it's really nuanced. So we don't have to bring it up now. I'll talk to you about it later. But I felt like what you had said, I didn't really disagree with any of it, as I recall. And usually that's how I remember stuff, is if I don't affirm it, then I would remember it. So,
right. Well, and here's the thing for me, like if justification is the determination of saved, or like in the status, right?
Yeah, that's right. I remember. It's all flashing now.
And justification is an action of God. We have no control over the change in standing, right? Yeah. That's God's action. Right. Then from there, sanctification and other things, like, we have influence in those, but not in justification. And if justification is what determines whether or not we enter the kingdom of God or not, and we don't actually have any control over it. For us to be able to unjustify ourselves, that means we have to have the authority of God.
Yeah. I think that's the one part I have a little issue with it, because I do think you're justified, and it's permanent in the sense that, like, you're actually in that standing, like you're saying. I just think that maybe and it's almost like an if for me. It's like, if you. And it is anecdotal, but it's very strong, because in my mind, it's really easy to accept the gospel and be saved. And so in the sense that like if you died, you would be saved because you heard the gospel and then you accept it. I think that's really easy to accept, you know, and be saved. I just think it seems like people who, it's hard for me to say that some of these people who have affirmed that really easy thing, which is trust in Christ, you know, and what he did and believed it. Seems like there's people who have done that because it's so easy to really believe it, and then they like somehow eventually hate God, and I just don't think they're necessarily, we can know that they're saved. And if you want to just say that they were never really accepted it, I'm fine with that. I just think, like, why promise people they can't lose it if some of them end up being people that were never saved at all? It just seems kind of like, I would rather just say, hey, look, like, cling to Christ, you know.
But you got to remember, like, if that is the truth,
right, then yeah, you're right.
Then it is actually a sin for us to say otherwise.
Yeah, I'm just not convinced of that, I guess, is the point, actually, in the end. But maybe that is the case. But
and here's the other part of it too, for me, that I don't understand, that like where this seems to be a splinter point of, if you are a son of God, right? It is clearly stated that if you're off being a scallywag, you will get chastised.
Yeah, I believe that.
All the way up to the point of being,
that's what happened to me,
like being removed from the world, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not being chastised, then that means you aren't actually a son of God.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So to me, now, when all of this chastisement is going to occur, whether or not it's visually apparent to the external observer, all that kind of stuff, that's not necessarily our place to be making that determination, right? Like, we don't know what's going on in somebody's mind who's doing something. We don't know what they're thinking about at night after they've been like engaged in all sorts of sin, right? We don't know if they're not laying in bed contemplating whether or not, you know, they should continue down that path or not. We don't know that, right? Because the reality is, most people, in the facade of which we interact with them on a, you know, human to human perspective, we're getting a very, very surface level interaction with them, and we have no direct perception and connection into what is their inner self. God does.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, I'm the first guy to appeal to exactly that, for the sake of saying that. So like, that's one thing I feel like people are like accusing my stance on, is I'm not looking to judge people by their fruit and say they're not saved, or to try to bully people into like straightening up because they're not saved. I'm not looking to like declare people unsaved in that sense. Like, that is not my motivation. I just see the Bible teaching that, like, because like if OSAS was just like the strict sense, then the Bible literally could have been like just a sentence long, and then that's it. And I just see philosophical problems with, you know, the Bible seems to be calling us to like teach, you know, holiness and other things like that. And so like I'm, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, I think the gospel is going to like be amazingly powerful to save people in the most surprising ways in the end. And so I tend to think people with the smallest amount of faith could be saved through the cross. And so I'm just not comfortable saying.
Well, I agree with you on that, but here's the other thing that has to be factored in my opinion. Number one, we, as I was kind of alluding to, we're external observers, right?
Yeah.
So number one, as I said, we don't know what's going on in that person's mind. Number two, from our perspective, time has an entirely different context than to God. So for example purposes, we don't know how many years Saul was a persecutor of Christians. We don't know exactly how long that was, how many years he was a active persecutor, right?
Probably several, but yeah, it could be several or it could be shorter. I mean, because well, it depends on your timeline, but it could be more.
So let's just use the easy example. Let's say it was a decade, right?
Okay.
If you are a Christian at the time, right, and you know you heard about Saul in year 2, right? You're now at year 8. From your perspective, Saul has been a just evil human for
yeah, good point.
a long time, right?
That's what you know him as, the persecutor, and you don't have scriptures yet, and yeah,
from your perspective,
yeah. If you live,
he's been this evil human for a long time, right?
Yeah, where are they learning? Where are these Christians like learning? Like it would only be they'd only learn of it from either witnessing it or witnessing it from people who witnessed it, because the Bible, Paul writes most of the New Testament, right? And so he's not even a Christian yet. So the dynamic would be,
right. So I'm just saying, like from the temporal perspective, right?
Yeah.
Saul's just been this horrible human being for this whole time, right? Okay, so I'm using that as an example of, okay, so we have somebody who maybe they were saved, they've fallen away, they've fallen into sin, all this kind of stuff. Maybe it's been a decade that they've been, and they're running around claiming to hate Christ, all this kind of stuff, right? From our perspective, temporally, they've been off being horrible human beings for 10 years, which, again, from our perspective, long time, right? From God's perspective, is that a long time? Nope. That's why I say, like, I'm not suggesting that we should embrace those people. I'm not saying we should justify what they're doing. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't, attempt rebuke. I'm not saying any of that, which it seems to be for a lot of folks, like, oh, if you don't condemn them immediately, then you're somehow, facilitating or, helping this stuff go along and justifying it. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be one or the other, right?
Yeah.
You can also operate from the perspective that, hey, there's a very strong probability this person is not saved, right? And I can act from that standpoint in terms of the way I interact with them or trust them and all that kind of stuff. Like, what would I engage with them on overall? But at the same time, that doesn't mean that if they were saved, that just because they're doing this doesn't mean that they haven't had the reawakening.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And I say this because there's been plenty of people historically who have had, whether it be
Jeffrey Dahmer,
tremendous hatred for God and then come around, or had knowledge when they were young, lived, were the proverbial prodigal son, and then returned.
Oh yeah, that's me.
And then gone on, and many of them have gone on to do great things historically, right?
I never really did stop believing, but I was totally just not at all actively praying or anything.
You've heard me talk about it. I mean, same thing with me, right?
Yeah.
And which is why I say, in the context of, if you knew me in that time frame, you would not have thought I was a Christian.
Yeah. Exactly.
You wouldn't have thought that I had ever. I mean, okay, so in my teens, like my childhood and like in my teens, like there were multiple times when I'm like, I don't know if I'm saved. And I'm sitting there trying to convince God that I'm believing with all my heart because of the doubt that was being put in my mind by preachers and such, right? And like, well, you're not be truly saved, it's all that kind of stuff. Even though I'm going to church and learning and going to Christian school, doing all this good stuff and whatnot, wasn't sinning. I mean, I was sinning, but not like in the active sense, right? I was trying to be a good person, right? All the things that we're told by the people who think you can lose your salvation that you would need to do were being done, right? Constant repentance, praying for forgiveness of sin, like random stuff you do. Oh, I swore, I'm sorry, all that kind of stuff, right? Daily basis. Then fast forward to adulthood, and if you knew me in that time frame, you would never have thought that I was a Christian. You wouldn't even have thought that I would have engaged in that, what I was just describing in my, teenage years and stuff, like being a good kid, right? And then you fast forward to my late 20s, and then I'm being brought back. Well, what did I learn in that time frame? And this is the other thing that I find very interesting about seems to me like a very narrow-minded perspective a lot of people take on this is, okay, let's assume God knew that I was going to return, number one. Number two, what did I learn in that time frame? Well, I sure as heck learned what not to do, right? And bad things to do. But then beyond that, I also have comprehension of how a lot of people are operating. I'm talking folks that weren't saved prior to, right? Didn't have the knowledge that I had. What their life has been like and the things they've engaged in, how easy it's been to sin and all these different things we've done. But then all at the same time, the guilt that you feel and the negative ramifications for your actions and the necessity to ultimately come to the realization and the acceptance of the fact that I must change my path or I'm headed to destruction. Right? If I hadn't experienced all that, I wouldn't be able to both empathize and sympathize with people who are facing those kinds of challenges now, or those moments of realization.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, does God justify the sin? No. However, God uses the experiences that we do to enable us to have impact in different arenas.
Absolutely.
And so
I
it's
agree.
like, okay, so in that context, again, God is observing all of this from the macro level, right? Not the temporal restrictions that we are, not the purely linear perspective that we're looking at, but from the eternal. And so it's like, if God knows that I'm going to return, right, and do what I'm doing right now in the conversations that we're having at this very moment, right, why would he remove my salvation and my justification when he knows this is the inevitable outcome? That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. Beyond the fact that I was already granted justification and my sins were already pardoned in the first place, and I've been adopted into his family. I'm now a son. The blood of Christ now is my propitiation, and now is what has erased my debt. And it's like, yeah, so in that context, because I'm off being a scallywag, God's just going to negate all of that and say, nope, you're out. Like, to me, that just makes no sense as to why that would. Now, if I was refusing to come back, let's say I had that moment of realization I had when I had my brain hemorrhage, right? And all those different things. Let's say after that, I continued to perpetuate the stuff that I was doing before and refuse to accept the fact that I have to turn back. I don't doubt for 2 seconds that God would have taken me.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, that could be the answer there, as far as how that works. I think that's definitely possible. I just don't know, I guess, but that's plausible in my mind. Like, I don't know. I'm still thinking it over.
Sidebar, Cheryl says I got beat by a onesie.
Huh? See what?
Okay, did you pick up on the fact that my opponent tonight was wearing a onesie?
I didn't. I didn't pay attention really, though.
Yeah, grown man was wearing a onesie.
Was it like one of those snuggle things?
I guess, I don't know. It had ears.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I mean, I saw like the last half, I think, and then part of the question thing. I had to do something at that time at the house because I'm moving too, and we have the house as open house, so.
Oh, nice.
We cleaned up and we put a bunch of stuff in storage just to make it more neat in here, and then like, dude, the house value has just gone way up suddenly. It's kind of a blessing, and the house is being built in Idaho. So if you drive westward, stop in North Idaho and say hi.
So you're moving to Idaho?
Yep.
Nice. So you're part of the exodus. Are you moving to one? Are you moving to like one of the? Are you moving from one of the counties that wants to seed and join Idaho, or are you just? No, you're in Seattle, right?
Yeah, I'm near Seattle. I'm in the same county as Seattle.
Okay, so you're not in one of the secession counties.
No, those are all Eastern Washington and Southern Washington.
My bad, guys. I got to bounce.
All right, see you.
God, Jesus loves you. Stay away from all the poison they can inject into your body, bypassing all the God-given immunity that you were born with. All right, y'all have a good night. God bless y'all.
Have a good one.
I think the mark of the beast is going to be bad Chinese food.
Who knows, brother? Who knows? But I'm staying away from anything from the corporations. Peace.
Good luck, sir. God bless. Godspeed. Love you, brother. He's fine.
Yeah, I would love to see I want to see the Northern California counties and the Southern Oregon counties seed, and then I guess you're what the Washington. It's like some Washington. It's like what the eastern, like
Yeah,
northeastern counties of Washington.
Well, I would say the whole east side is red, but if that's what you mean, and then some in the south, uh, even some maybe in the peninsula, but and then as you go down the I-5 corridor and near Oregon, and some of those may be blue, I'm not sure anymore, but because Oregon's gotten quite blue. So as you approach Portland, which is northern Oregon, southern Washington,
Yeah, I've got cousins there.
Is what's annoying though is that the Cascades are pretty like 45 minutes from the ocean or in the Puget Sound, and so because that's where Seattle is, the Puget Sound fingers in there on, kind of protected with the peninsula of the state, and Seattle's right halfway up on the east side of that peninsula or the Puget Sound, and so right on the water pretty much. And then if you travel down the I-5 corridor, literally along the coast, basically, at least of the inlet of the water there, in the peninsula, so it's not open ocean there, but Tacoma's right on the south end of that finger of water. So then as you go up, and then it keeps just going south straight down to Portland. But where I live is right off the I-5 corridor in Auburn, and it's a little bit closer to Tacoma. Tacoma's about 10 minutes south, and Seattle's like 20-25 minutes north, maybe. But yeah, just going. But yeah, what I was going to say is the Cascades are just right there, not far from the coast even. So the only blue part of the state is literally right where I'm at, like King County, basically. That's it. And but that is way more, or way enough to win the state every time for the blue. So the rest of the state, at least it used to be, I haven't looked at a map, but it's all red. And so people are just hate it. Same with the governor, voting for a governor, they can't win. But everybody east of the Cascades, which is 85% of the state, is red. So
wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it's it gets nuts. But okay, on that note, I'm going to bed.
All right, peace out, brother.
Everybody have a good one. Folks, for joining us, appreciate you very much. And thanks for staying in for this. What was going to be a maybe 1.5 hour stream. It's now 3 hours and 13 minutes. So it's time to go to bed. But as I always like to close these out, I say, as you contemplate the different factors and the evidence and the pieces of the puzzle in relation to what is necessary for your very existence, I hope that the conclusions that you reach will always be logical, plausible, and probable. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night, and I appreciate you very much.